Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the horror show for the Compendium of Dread.
Hey, all you party people, what's going on tonight? What is going on, Trish? What's going on, Jack? Good evening, Nita. Thank you for joining tonight. I hope you all are having a wonderful week and a great 2021. Goodbye, 2020, and all the problems that it left behind. So, we have an awesome show tonight with a special person that I've known for a while, and she's working on a project she's tried to kickstart before, and we will talk about some of that in the show. So without further ado, I'm going to bring out Miss Meredith Loughran.
Hey, everybody. Russ, I love your intro. Let's explode together.
Let's explode together. That's right. Trish, she got kind of scared there. See, everybody may not know this about me, but I love doing voices, and I can do probably 1,000 different
That
voices.
was awesome. And I might be, because I didn't know that, and now I do. And I'm like, oh, I think I might tap your shoulder to maybe do some voiceover.
Oh, I can definitely do that.
For sure.
That is something I've done my entire life. You can ask my wife. Literally, I've probably prank called her at least 50 times, and she had no idea it was me. She's like getting all mad at these people on the phone, and I'm so good at keeping a straight face. Like I'm the ultimate prankster, and everybody in the audience knows because I always, every once in a while I'll pop in a story about what I've done.
Caller ID ruined that, though, didn't it?
Well, see, that's why that's nice on the iPhone. You can go into the tab and you can hit unidentified caller and you can block your number. But yes, caller ID did ruin that.
Everybody, we're finding out that Russell Allen is a delinquent.
No, I am a delinquent. Oh, man, I've done some of the worst pranks to my wife. It's terrible. So, Trish says, how are you tonight?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Trish.
Can we talk about what you have on your desk? Let's turn Russ a little red.
Aw. You're not seeing that in this view, though. We have to go into the wide view in order to. She knows, though. She's been watching Freaky Friday and a few other shows, so she knows what's on my desk.
He wants me to do Arnold Schwarzenegger. Get out of here. I'm the governor of California. Get through the chopper. There you go. There you go.
Oh my gosh. You might have to do a whole interview with that.
I might have to do a whole interview. Just start doing random voices.
Right.
So, Compendium of Dread. Let's talk about this project. Mm-hmm. So, you tried Kickstarting this last year in March, and you didn't know then what you do know now. So, tell us a little bit about that, if you would.
Okay, so anybody who's gone over to the Compendium of Dread, if you look over on my profile, you'll see that I've launched this twice. And the first time I did it was my very first time on Kickstarter. And I haven't made that a secret. I went in there with the whole idea that it was going to fail. And it did, miserably. I had 6 supporters, I think, and maybe brought in... Let me see. I'm looking at it right now. 6 backers with $51 pledged for a $500 goal. And again, I went in there with the full expectation that it was going to fail. And, the reason why I did that was because I really wanted to learn the platform. I wanted to understand what Kickstarter was, what the tools were, and everything like that. And I had been working on this book, The Compendium of Dread. It's an anthology of short fiction. So it's flash fiction, some short stories, some microfiction, which is like a lot less than even 500 words. Like you might have some 100-word flash fiction pieces that are kind of in there, like people put poetry at the beginning of a chapter or something like that. So those are things that I had written across maybe 4, almost 5 years. And so I said, you know what, I've got a product, it's just about ready, and I didn't really even care all that much. It was like, it's done. If it doesn't work here on Kickstarter, then I'm just going to put it up on Amazon anyway. Well, here it is almost a year later, and it's still in a way. I mean, I love these stories. Don't get me wrong. I love these stories. I love reading them. I read them at. I read a couple of them at 101 Tales through Comicsplex. I read them during some of the indie events that we had when we did Spooky Tales, and they're good stories. But I was like, what am I doing with this? So you know, the original idea behind the Compendium of Dread was to create an anthology with a whole lot of other creators. Because I've been in the writing community since the 90s. And I have friends who love writing horror and thrillers and, slasher kind of stuff. I said, why don't we get a whole bunch of friends together, send me a story, I'll edit, let's put it in the book, let's get published. Because everybody was talking this big game. Oh, I want to have a published book. Oh, I want to get published. Oh, let's do this. And so here I am. I'm waiting. I'm waiting for stories. I'm like, Russell, where the hell are the stories? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you've been through. So you're waiting for other people, and it's sitting there and it's collecting dust. And I waited. I waited months. And then it seemed like years. And then it was years. And I said, you know what? Screw it. I have enough stories. I have enough stories that I can put it all together. And I had to dig. I had to dig for these stories because, I didn't save them on my own drive. I blogged them elsewhere. So it's like, okay. I had to dig for them, edit them. Some of them I really wanted to expand on because they were quick. Maybe they were writing challenges or something like that. You know how you put up an image and you say, okay, write a story based on that image, and you could have 50 writers that write 50 totally different stories. So that was cool. And so those were the challenges that were going out. Again, nobody submitted a story. I said, screw it. If I'm going to get something like this published, I guess I'm going to have to do it myself. So out of frustration, I did. I put it together. The book is essentially done. But again, it's one of those, and not to detract anybody, trust me, because I want you to head over to Kickstarter because there's a good reason why it's there now, as opposed to when I launched it in March. But yeah, it was one of those things where I struggled with it. And then there were times when I hated it. I was just like, why? Why am I doing this by myself? Why am I so frustrated with everybody? And it kind of went to the question of, did I want this? Did I want this book to be published more than anybody else? Because it wasn't supposed to be just my baby. I wanted other people involved. People who said that they wanted to be published, and then they disappeared. And I guess, and so I really thought, okay, I guess I really do want this more than them, but I can't do the work for them either. So there I was. And March came along, and again, it was more of a goof at that point to learn the process. And quite honestly, if you have it in your head that you're going to fail, you're going to fail. Yeah. And that's exactly what I did.
Well, and running a Kickstarter is not easy. Preparing, setting up, and it's like part of you wants to do things your own way, and you got 80 people telling you 40 different things, and you're like, whose advice do I take? Like, because everybody that is giving me this advice has had successful Kickstarter campaigns, but what's right for me, and what do I do? And it's like, it's not that we don't welcome the advice. It's just a lot. You're trying to figure out the ins and outs of Kickstarter, and then you've got all these people blasting you with information, which is totally helpful, but it's a lot to take in, and it's really overwhelming. And so you go in on launch day and you're like, I hope I did this right, launch. And so I think it's a lot of getting into the groove of figuring out how you want to do things on there and getting the word out and learning, the ins and outs. And I think everybody, pretty much has a failure their first time around. I know Lewis in the audience, the first time he went on Kickstarter, he said his first project failed. And it helped a lot to hear that, hey, I'm not the only one, because I just launched it on Anti-Titan back in November, and we made a good haul at it. We hit, I think, a little over 55%. I think it was almost 60%. And, I was really happy with that, and a lot of it is overcoming the hump of putting yourself out there. I think that's a lot
Yes.
of it too, is it's like, I'm really doing this. This is really happening. I'm putting this out there.
Yeah, please don't call my baby ugly.
Yeah.
Right? But see, that is what I did now compared to what I did then is night and day. I mean, seriously, it was the process of really getting on the learning curve
Yeah.
and going, okay, what works, what doesn't. I launched it again. If you were to look at both campaigns side by side, you would see a huge difference. The video is completely different. The description is completely different. The reward tiers, the stretch goals, everything is pretty different. Um, the Now, what sets it apart was keeping busy. I mean, to spend that many months um, working in the field that I want to be in, whether it's writing prose or whether it is um, comic books. Now in 2020, I became one of the founding members of Terraform Comics, and we are getting ready to launch some really exciting stuff. But what I wanted to do was because, all right, so the story is that I kind of tripped into the comic book world because of my association with Geek Insider. And
Yeah.
for your audience who doesn't know, I'm the associate editor over at the Geek Insider website, but I'm also the executive producer of the Geek Insider podcast. And because of that association, I was interviewing a lot of people in the comic book industry, as well as other entertainment, musicians, people in blockchain, entertainers, movie stars, directors, all kinds of stuff. And the comic book industry, the people who are in it, really embraced me. So when I say I tripped in, I tripped. I was just like crawling around. I'm like, what the hell am I doing here? I have no idea. And the community lifted me up and dragged me in. But I have to tell you, Russ, I didn't struggle and I didn't fight it too much. I fully embraced it because it really touches on all of the things that I love to do as a creative person. I love to write, I love to edit. I love people who are so skilled at art. And
Not
I'm
just skilled, passionate.
Yes, and very passionate. Where they write or they draw because they have to, not because, I mean, paying the bills and being able to do that is a blessing. It's a gift. But to do it because you have to, because you've got ink running through your veins, it's like, no, I've got to write this story, or I'll go mad. It's one of those things. So becoming part of the community has been so fulfilling on a lot of different levels, where I get to talk, I get to learn. But as I'm learning, um, I my journey is helping other people who are coming up behind me to say, "Oh, well, she can do it. She's freaking 49 and she's doing this for the first time. Hell yeah, I can do it." And that is very exciting for me to be an example to show you that there is a pathway. It doesn't matter how old you are or what you might be facing, that if you are passionate enough about something that you can make it happen. And it turns out that a lot of these flash fiction tales, when you're scripting them out, are about the size of a comic book.
Yep.
And you know what's weird? I don't know if you did this for Xenonanite Titans, but when there's a piece of dialogue or something, I had that image in my head. It wasn't necessarily like a movie. Sometimes images run through my head like a movie, but a lot of times they were just snapshots of what it would look like, and I would get stuck there. And my frustration was, man, I how do I draw this? I don't know how to draw. I mean, I can, but it's not good. And I would never call myself a sequential artist. If anything, I can splash some paint on paper and, you know,
Well, and see,
maybe use,
that's the
yeah,
fun thing about being an author, though, and being like a writer, is because you can write your words, and then you can say, "Hey, I need this done," and then you get something like, where is it at? Sorry, I gotta scroll through here. You get something like this,
yeah,
and it's like, to see your words come to life into art by somebody else, and see, that, hey, it's like winning, because
yeah. Your words inspired that. It's like, holy shit.
yeah. Yeah,
Oh,
it's like I really. Oh, you're
sorry.
fine. You should watch Sunday's show.
I was like,
Sunday's.
I should have asked first.
Oh, you're fine. I drop a few F-bombs here and there and stuff, so it happens. Lewis will call me out on it. Start calling me the Chuck Show.
Oh no.
But yeah, no, that's the awesome part about being a creative, is like, when you're like, I suck at drawing. Like, I could draw this in my head. Like, I have a snapshot of exactly what the scene would look like in my head, but I can't draw worth the shit. And it's like, what do I do with this? And so it was really fun, like CB. When I asked CB to do the piece, I was like, look, you can do this battle scene, or you can do, there's a really emotional piece. I was like, I'll let you choose. I wanted to give the artist the choice of, what they wanted to do. And I'm like, do this emotional piece. And he captured the essence of the scene. And it was absolutely beautiful.
Mhm.
And that's what's so great about it. It's like, that's why we have artists. They can draw pictures for us. But it's like, you get to see that I'm really getting my point across through my words, because if you can do that and you had that image in your head, that's pretty much the image that I wanted. And so it helps. It helps a lot.
So I know this is your show, but I want to ask you a question.
Yeah.
When you were writing the script or the prose for Xena Nanite, am I saying that right?
Yeah, Xenonanite Titan.
Xenonite. Okay.
Blah, blah, blah.
um, did you always imagine it to be a graphic novel or a comic book?
So, yes and no. So 10 years ago, when I wrote the novel, I never imagined doing it in a comic book. And then, kind of like you, a little over 3 years ago, I got pulled back in the comic world. And I'd always kind of been a part of the comic world. And, and then I met my wife, and, here I am 3 years ago, I drag out this box of comics out of my closet. And she's like, what the hell, you have comic books? And I was like, yeah. All the times we've moved over the years through all the apartments and stuff, you never thought to look in this box and wonder what was in it. She's like, oh my gosh, you're even more of a nerd than I thought. And she can't laugh now, because she likes Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter and the whole Marvel movies and stuff like that. But I kind of fell back into the comic book world, and I wanted to pick my book back up, but with Roderick having his open heart surgeries and stuff, we had so much happen with our family. We really just didn't have time. I'm the only one working, so I was working crazy hours, and then when I wasn't working, I had to mow the grass, or this needed to be painted, or I needed this built, or the oil needed to be changed. Like, I was constantly busy, and I would have like an hour a day, maybe, or a week, to sit down and do stuff that I like to do. And so last January, when I got the whole cancer diagnosis, it was kind of like, I rethought about doing the book. I'm like, I really regret it. This is my biggest regret. And I'm like, I'm in the comic book world now. This could be a comic book later on. The story doesn't end in the trilogy, and it could go on in a comic. And I'm like, this is how I want to do it. And that, it was kind of like you never imagined in a million years you would be wanting to do a comic book. And it's like, here we are.
Yeah. And, and the reason why is because I suspected that our story with that is very similar, where I never imagined that these stories would turn into comic books. And then it was just like, well, what would that look like as a script? And I have to tell you, not a lot of people were forthcoming with what scripts look like. There's like, no, there's no standard way as long as you can communicate with your artist. I'm like, I have to find a freaking artist. I'm like, what? I'm like, are there people to kind of do that? I could probably fudge a script, but it would help to have some kind of format. And they're like, nah. It's like, okay, you guys kind of suck. But what was nice about that is like I felt like I was thrown into the fire. But it forced me to decide whether or not I wanted to take it seriously, or if I was just going to be like, nah, it's too hard. I think a lot of people think that it's too hard. It is hard. It is hard. You have to be dedicated. I mean, for you to have a book that you did like 10 years ago, and it's not a thin little, 24 page thing that you put together. I mean, I think when all is said and done, if I were to script out the entire Compendium of Dread, it might be maybe as bulky as yours, in a totally different genre. But at the same time, it's like, it's one of those things where like, yeah, I can see it now. I mean, I got totally bit by the bug and I'm all in, and it's very exciting to go on this process. But at the same time, I'm like, holy cow, how am I going to pay for art? I'm not made of money either.
Yeah. And that's a lot of what's really hard about, working on your prose and trying to get it out there is how much am I willing to risk and to lose just to get this off the ground? And it's like, I got to go all in because I have to make this happen. I'm so passionate about my book. You're so passionate about your project that we're willing to do whatever it takes, pay for the art up front, get everything done. And then, the book's done. If it doesn't kickstart, then we'll print it ourselves. We'll figure out a way, somehow this is going to happen. And, and it's just a journey along the way, and we're riding the waves, and it's worth it. It really is, because in the end, when it finally gets out there and you get that box of freshly printed books with your name on it, and you open it up and you smell it for the first time and the tears well up in your eyes, you'd be like,
I can't wait.
yeah, I finally did it. I can't wait. That's the one thing I'm like, I cannot wait just to smell a freshly printed book and it be mine. And like, it's something that 10 years ago I wanted to do. All this stuff happened. Life happened. Crap sucked. All these years later, I made it happen. And it's just going to be a great feeling. And the same thing with you. You waited for these stories for a long time and nobody ever got with it. And you're like, well, screw it. I'm going to do it myself. And you had to dig up these stories you had wrote along the way to put them together into this compendium. And then it's like, you put it out there and it was like, yeah. And then you're like, okay, now what do I do? But instead of giving up, you pulled together, you fell into a new community, and people lifted you up. And that's what's so great about the indie community. If it was
really awesome.
The big name companies out there, the publishers, or with comic books, Marvel and DC, they would just stamp you out and be like, nah, your competition, get out of here. But the indie community doesn't look at other creators like that. They welcome you in open arms and give you a wealth of information of anything that you can need or want or ask. And yes, there are a few out there that are like, I'm not telling you my secrets. But
well, exactly. I mean, I'm sure when you decided that you were going to turn it into a graphic novel, that you probably followed a bunch of Facebook groups and as many things as you can to get into the community. And I found that I did that. And I realized how much negativity was out there. If you asked the question and people were laughing at you, people who had comic book credits and things, art credits, and they were just like, oh, who is this? Who is this person who's, coming into my realm? And it was like, oh no. And I left. I'm like, why should I be in here to be abused as a newbie? I'm like, no. And I surrounded myself with people who were so busy, but they were like, yeah, you want to learn? Okay, watch and learn. Ask questions. I will give you some answers. If I don't want to give you the answer, it's because I'm teaching a lesson, to get an education, as Randy Zimmerman says, get an education. And again, I think that weeds out, it filters out a lot of the people who are either the pretenders or the ones who want to take it seriously,
Yep.
or just because of curiosity. Like I said, a lot of this started off as kind of a mild curiosity. It's like, am I going to get it done? I have to tell you, Russ, I don't know how you felt, but when I paid money to an artist, kind of a significant amount, like I could have probably put down on a car that I really need. All right, and we made that choice with my husband because this was money that was going up front. I was sick. I was sick to my stomach. I was like, oh man, that's kind of a lot of money for art. I'm like, I know it's my book. It's like, is this dream strong enough? Can I do this? Or am I being stupid? Am I chasing windmills?
Yeah, Don Quixote.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm like, is this my windmill? What am I doing here?
I can tell you, it does make you a little bit sick.
I was just like, oh.
And then the other half, they're like, yeah, you spent all this money on this book that was supposed to be so awesome. And I'm like, it is awesome. It just hasn't, it isn't its time yet. And it's going to happen and it does. You're just like, oh yeah. And that's part of the problem too, with doing, a first project is you can't go in it knowing, thinking that you're going to make money off of it because, pretty much any first work like that, you're going to come in, you're either going to break even or be at a little bit of a loss, but it's worth it because you're dipping your toes in the pond. And then later on, if you continue with your work, then that's when you could start making more money, bringing in bigger artists and snazzing up the book and doing bigger things. So, I totally understand the feeling.
Well, the analogy that I would probably give is, my husband's a motorhead, loves classic cars, and people will spend a small fortune on getting that car running, looking beautiful, and then they go for resale and they almost never get what they put into it.
Oh yeah.
And that's kind of how I see this process is that I'm putting in, I am investing money and I think of it as an investment.
Yep.
I'm investing in this project because I believe in it. Now, when it comes to whether it's this Kickstarter or whatever happens to it moving forward, the dying is one story in the compendium. I paid for the first 8 pages of art to get that done. In order for me to save money, I'm lettering it myself. It could be a hot mess. It could be okay. But I have friends who are in the business who will give me, tips and things like that and say, well, it was a good run, but maybe for this one, you might want to invest some more money. And again, I don't expect that. I have no expectations, to tell you the truth. I have hope. I have a lot of hope. But the expectation really is that I just want to put out a good product. And by spending the money up front to show, hey, I've got 8 pages already done. I'm committed to this. I've invested in it. Hopefully that pays off in the future because as well as I do, a lot of people, they don't do it just for the passion. Money on the back end would be nice too. And that's the God's honest truth. Anybody who tells you different is lying. People want money in the bank too. But that's the huge difference between what I did before in March with the first launch. Again, I wanted to learn what Kickstarter was like. I wanted to see what the tools were like. And I did a real half-assed job. I rushed it. Because I didn't have any expectation that I would sell or fund. And if it did, I was just like, probably in a world to hurt because there's like, oh shit, I have to deliver this book, Whereas now I had the time to really look at the stories and fix them up, expand on a few and say, hey, I'm going to turn these into comic books too. So I'm marrying the world of prose, which I've been in for decades, into comic books, which I still consider myself a newbie at, and bringing those worlds together where and that's what makes me excited about this project, is that you're going to see what it was like in just the words, and then you're going to see what an artist did because they were inspired by them. And so at some point you're going to see all of it together, and that could be years. But right now, this crowdfund, this Kickstarter, is to help offset the cost of more art. And the really cool thing is, I know that you had the Kickstarter up earlier. There's a tier. It's super limited to just 5 people because uh, once once this closes out, and I think there's 21 or 22 days left on it
22.
now. Yeah, I'm like screwy with the time. Um, I'm going to be busy writing 5 new stories based on their feedback, for the people who supported that level.
Yeah, the ones
Um,
you're having over for dinner or having
oh, they're
for
going to be
dinner.
delicious.
They're going to be delicious.
Yeah, so I mean, it could be horror, it could be paranormal. They, maybe if they want their name used in it, but eventually those are going to be turned into comic books as well. So I even had one guy who supported that tier who said, I've supported a bunch of Kickstarters. Never once was I going to be in a comic book. I said, hold on a second. You do know this is a book, right? And they're going to eventually be comic books. He's like, yeah, that's all right. And that was exciting to me.
So, can you tell us a little bit about some of the stories in there, or maybe about one of them, like a little more in depth, kind of give people an idea of, what your writing style is?
Yeah. So the Dying is the first book that's coming out of the gate with art. Those 8 pages are going into Terraform Comics Continuum, which is a collection of stories from a bunch of other creators. So we don't want to call it an anthology because in comic books apparently that's a bad word. So we're calling it a collection. Wink, wink. Okay, but let me see. So the Dying is kind of a, how would I describe it? Because okay, I don't know how well this is going to be received because we are in the middle of a pandemic. But when I wrote this story, it was it was like 4 years ago. So please don't hold that against me.
I don't think people will.
I hope not.
It
But
could be the zombie apocalypse, and I guarantee you, people are still going to be watching The Walking
right,
Dead and Shaun of the Dead and Dawn of the Dead.
exactly. So I'm hoping. So let me see here. It is it's kind of um okay, it's an apocalyptic kind of sort of zombie story, um because the dying is the thing that so Sierra is the main character in this story, and she's a young woman, and it just seems like when her body changed, when she hit puberty and she became a young woman, all of a sudden it seemed like coincidence that people were dying, and then they were dying at a faster rate, and then she was having these nightmares where she was seeing people dropping dead, and some of them just, they're just dead, but then others are kind of like the living dead, but they don't live, you know, they're not the living dead for that long. It's really kind of complicated in a way. So because I didn't want it to be The Walking Dead,
Yeah,
okay?
no,
I
exactly.
did not want it to be The Walking Dead, and I even thought about that years ago when I wrote this. And so I don't want to give away the very end, but let's just say um, she feels like she's very much alone, and perhaps she isn't. And the dying, which is this thing that's feeding off of her, is using her as its kind of a living ledger. So she gets to witness all of the terrible things, and the world is dying and all that stuff. And they're feasting on each other, and then they're dropping dead. So it's really kind of, it's very dark. So that's what I've got art on right now. There is one which is probably one of my favorites, and the next one that I will probably get art for, and it's called The Good Samaritan. And so I don't know about you, but I love stories about serial killers.
Yeah.
And so Dexter is one of my favorites. And for some reason, I probably binge watched Dexter, and so this idea of a serial killer popped into my head. So the Good Samaritan is, it's like you don't know if he's a good guy or a bad guy until you read the story.
Well, it's just a
Uh,
good thing the idea of a killer popped in your head, and not a serial killer that popped into your head, because that's never a good thing.
right. But and again, because this is a collection of dark fiction, I didn't want to just stick with horror or thrillers and stuff.
Yeah,
So
no.
there are other things that kind of deal with some paranormal stories. There's one where it's kind of the ghost of a young boy, and through this story you realize that he was lost in the woods and his parents never found him. So it happens to be that a couple of campers are out there, and she wakes up to like this voice or this vision. She doesn't know what the hell it is, and so she's following it, and they find his remains. So it's like things like that where it kind of takes you through scaring you, but that particular story kind of makes other people cry. And so I love the idea of playing with the emotions of all of those things with those stories.
So there you go, guys. Here is the tier that she was talking about. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you
Hmm.
off, Meredith. So here's the tier that she was talking about right there. $75, only 5 available, where you can get wrote into a story. There's only 2 of these left. 3 of them are already gone. So with 22 days left, if you want to get wrote into your own, either suspense, thriller, horror, whatever you want to
Hmm.
get your idea on, here's your chance. You get 2 left.
Yeah,
And if not, you've got
that's gonna be fun.
yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. And you've got a lot of other options on here too. So you've got, the dollar, the coffee for the beast, and then you've got the $5 digital, the
Mhm.
$12 soft cover, and then you've got the spiral notebook, which is a really cool idea. You have the write your own horror. It's got the Compendium of Dread cover, and it's a spiral notebook
Yeah, where you can write your own.
where you can
It's like
write your own.
take it out on the road, and
Use it for
that's the
your victim
that's the thing.
list.
Do you do that, Russ? Do you take a notebook wherever you go
You
for
don't
your
really
ideas?
you really don't want to talk to me about how I write.
Maybe I do.
So I have never been a person to take notes. I don't take notes. I have the memory of an elephant, which unfortunately has been hard to adjust with, the medical situation that's transpired over the last year and the medication that I'm on. I
Hmm.
have really bad problems with. I'm really good at multitasking. Now I can't multitask too well. If I'm doing one thing and I try to do another thing, I really screw up. So I've really had to like kick it back a notch over the last couple of months. But I've never been one to take notes. Like I'll be out mowing the grass and I'll be like, man, I'm stuck on this part of the book, and then I'll be like, oh, this will be awesome, and then like I don't need to write it down or nothing. Like it could be like a week later, I'll sit down and I'll write it. But
Oh,
but I mean
I
my
wish I
process.
had that gift.
Well, and my process for writing is I write on the toilet
I saw that.
because my writing is the shit. So you know I have a weird process. I'll sit down and I'll fidget and I'll spin in my chair and I'll listen to music, and I like when I get in my groove, I just write. Like I don't really take notes, and like I wrote the book already. It was like 900 pages, and so when I did the first section of the book, which was the part 1, the one that I just kickstarted, I went through a 90-page rewrite. So Jack and I had the conversation yesterday. I finally divulged the information to him and Wendy about what the big stupid part of the book that I like somebody made me think about something, and I thought about it, and I was like rethinking about the scene in the book, and I was like, that's totally stupid. There's a huge plot hole here. And I'm like, I got to fix this. So it led to a whole new rewrite, added characters, added universe, another planet, and just all kinds of stuff. And I just pulled it out of my ass, and and I just built all of it into the rest of the book like that. And I'm like, I just flowed with it, and I just love to write. Like you said earlier, you do the thing where you try to do the creative writing process to get the juices flowing, where you put a picture up and you're like, what's the story that could be about this picture? We did that when I was in 3rd grade. We would have to color a picture and we'd have to write a story on it. And I love that. Like, I love when people give me this and they're like, all right, write a story. I'm like, okay, here you go.
Yeah. See, now I am jealous of your brain because I don't remember shit. And if I don't write it down, I get so mad because I'll sit here and I'll go, there was something I was supposed to remember. It's like, it's gone. And I get so mad at myself because I know better. And sometimes it might be one line. It might be a piece of dialogue. It could be a title. It could be a melody. If I could write music, hell, I would. But when I don't, that's why I carry a notebook with me. It's a little notepad, a little spiral notepad that I carry with me all the time. And I have pulled over when I was driving to make sure that I write it down, because you're like, oh, it's brilliant, and then sometimes you just can't write it in, it just doesn't fit. But I always save them because it might be used somewhere else. There was a reason in my head. There was a reason that popped into my head.
Yeah, whether it could be like a branch off story where you could do like a different, hey, this happened, and we move on in the story, and then later on you get somebody that's like, well, what happened to this person during this time where there's this 5-year period. It's like, oh, well, we can write a story on that. But and to go back on this, yes, I cannot write without music either, but people just like absolutely lose their shit when I tell them that I listen to dubstep while I'm writing. Like, that gets the creative juices flowing, and people are like, how the hell do you even listen to that, much less write to it? And I'm it's so energetic. Like,
I can't do that either, because if it's a song I know, I stop everything and I just start singing it, like a loon.
Yeah, and I listen to Pandora, so like I'll put on like Tech 9 radio, and like Ludacris Use a Hoe will be on. I'll be like, use a hoe, and I'll be typing, just whatever.
I wish I knew how you did that, because I know people who can do that. You're one of the few who can, because when I do that, I end up typing what I'm singing or hearing. Just because the transcriptionist that I used to be, it used to be one of my jobs. Like, okay, what are you saying? And I type it, and I'm looking at it going, what the hell did I just, no, you dummy.
Yeah. And like listening to dubstep's like drinking a 12-pack of Monster Energy for me. It just like amps me up, and I just like, it flows. My husband was bitching at me, like, how the hell can you do that?
I know. I'm telling you, that is a gift. It's a gift. I wish I had it. But no, I have to write in silence for the most part.
Yeah, I can't stand it silent. But then I can't. Here's the funny thing. So I could write listening to dubstep, but I can't concentrate when my kids are running through the house screaming. I'm like, stop it! I'm trying to write here.
See, that I don't mind that, because when my kids were younger, now they're all grown and everything, but when they were younger, when they made noise, I knew that everything was okay. It was when they were quiet, I'm like, oh shit, what are they into? Then you run, and then you realize that they were in the tub of petroleum jelly, and it's all over the walls and shit. So been there. No, I can take the screaming kids. I cannot take the music, not because I don't want to, but because I can't concentrate. It's just like squirrel.
Meredith's bringing out the picture book in her head. She's like, I remember back in 20 years ago when I first heard this song, and this is where I was at, and this is what I was doing. You start going down memory lane, and then like an hour later, you're like, shit, I've wrote 3 words.
Yeah. Or I'm just not in the mood. I just turn it off, and it's like, all right, I wasted a bunch of time.
Yeah, and that is the worst. Yeah, there's no worse feeling in the world. I don't care who you are. There's no worse feeling in the world than you're concentrating on something and you realize that it's been quiet for 10 minutes and there's toddlers in the house.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, what did I just allow to happen?
Right. It's like, okay, first of all, make sure that they're still alive.
Yeah.
Now, what did they ruin?
Yeah. How much of the pantry did they empty and did they have in the floor in their room?
Right.
Oh my God. Like Roderick got a hold of like a 5-pound bag of flour and it exploded it all over his room. Like it was everywhere. It was on every single thing. And I'm like, and we have one of those HEPA vacuum cleaners. So it's got all them filters in it. And here I am sucking up flour and it's clogging up every damn filter in the vacuum cleaner to where it's like, you can hear it. It's like, it's working overtime trying to suck the air past all this flour. And I'm just like, well, I guess we get to go buy a new vacuum cleaner. Oh, man.
Yeah, gotta love it. It's really hard to be creative when you've got the little humans running around.
Yeah, it is. And they keep you on your toes, too. Hey, Dad, what are you doing? I'm writing. Yeah. Oh, yeah? What you writing about?
Yeah, and it's kind of funny because I joke that I would probably be offended if I wasn't on some kind of a soft watch list because of my Google searches. Because I mean, not only do I do horror, but and I do other research articles, through Geek Insider and other sites and stuff. But I write some erotica as well. And so some of my Google searches is just like, hello, handlers. I'm just doing a little research today. And, and hope that I don't get a knock on the door one day. But there are some things that I will absolutely not research because I don't want to go there. Okay, handlers, we're behaving today. So
I just don't care. I'd love for him to show up. I'll come up with some crazy shit to tell him. Like, oh, yeah, you want to know why I was looking this up?
Yeah.
Boy, do I got a story for you.
Right, or scaring my husband, when I ask him, like, how long does a person have to disappear before I can say that they're dead? And he's like, why do you want to know that?
Well, and that's the funny thing. Like, if anybody in the world was going to get flagged for anything, it would have been me because I was so excited to tell everybody back when the iPhone first came out with Siri, that you could ask her where you could hide a dead body, and she would literally tell you places you could hide a dead body. She would. I swear to God, when you would ask her, you'd be like, "Hey Siri, I need to hide a body," and she'd be like, "I found the nearest mines, quarries, caves, and waste facilities."
Oh, that's brilliant!
And she'd be like, "Which one do you want?" And I was like, "This is fucking hilarious." I'm like, I'm telling everybody. So by the end of the week, there's like 100 people that are like, "Hey guys, check this out. Hey Siri, I need to hide a body." And she's like, and so like finally, like I guess it was probably about 2 years ago now, they finally, like, it was on there forever. And then 2 years ago they took it off there. Now when you ask her that, she says, I have the number for a psych line or some shit like that.
Oh, that makes me so sad.
Yeah, I mean, there was so much fun stuff. Like, hey, beam me up, Siri. And she would say, funny stuff. Like, stand on the pad.
Oh, my God. That is so funny.
And now they've broke her. Like, I don't know what the deal is. Like, for the last 2 months, like, I'd be like, hey, Siri, turn on the flashlight. And she's like, please wait.
Oh, no.
Hold on. Just a sec. And then, like, freaking 30 seconds later, she's like, something went wrong. I'm like, I gotta turn the flashlight on by now. Thanks a lot. But yeah, there was back in the day when they first started out, there was so much funny shit you could ask Siri. You'd ask her to tell you jokes, sing you songs, where to hide dead bodies. I mean, just anything. And she would just, oh yeah. The other funny thing that I found, I was like, I wonder if this would work. I'm like, hey Siri, I need to get laid. And she'd be like, I found the nearest strip club and escort service. Like, she literally would. Or like the other one that was really funny, I was like, hey guys, check this out. Hey Siri, I need to shit. And she'd be like, I found the nearest bathroom. It's 1.3 miles from you. Would you like directions?
Oh my God. See, now I never played with that, but that would be so fun. I mean,
Oh,
that
man.
is just a wealth of information that you
No,
can
it
write
is.
into your stories. Oh my God, that's
Oh
so
man, I had
funny.
so much fun with Siri. Like I would have like an hour-long conversation with her just to see what kind of crazy shit she would say. So yeah, there's all kinds of funny stuff. But
Oh, now she's
but
broken.
I mean, now she's broken. It's so
That's
sad.
sad.
Damn you, all you people that get butthurt about shit. Damn it. What's up, Danny?
Hey, Danny.
Oh man.
Oh,
But
that's
yeah,
wild.
man, it's fun doing research because it's like you go to think about. You're like, I'm gonna look this up because I need to know this about my story. And not only
Yeah.
do you have to worry about, like, is somebody watching this website and who looks this shit up, but then you get to this one thing where I'm like, all right, I need to make a new element for the nanites for the suit. I'm like, I really like this name. I've never heard it used before. I'm 100% in love with this work. And you look it up, and there's nothing on the internet about it
Hmm.
until you find this one site and it's like some kind of crazy BDSM I'm cool with BDSM, but like this was like legit some crazy shit. And I'm like, I am no way using this because when people Google this, I do not want this to be the first thing that comes up. So I was so butthurt that I had to change.
Oh man.
But I ended up liking what I went with, which was magnesium. And I was like, I looked it up. I was like, good, there's nothing for this because this was like my second favorite, and I can live with that. And I'm
Hmm.
definitely not going with the first one. So you find some crazy shit on the internet when you're researching for, can I use this or has it been used before? Or when you're doing research. We've all been there and done that.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
why is the world
I
politically correct when we shouldn't be? Exactly.
I think it's the responsibility of the creators to push the envelope. I mean, where would we be if there wasn't Star Trek or
Yeah.
Star Wars? Buck Rogers and all of that stuff. And you think about it. I mean, all right, I'm going to age myself with. Remember that show Get Smart with the agent, and he had a phone in his shoe, and
Yep.
we were like, "Oh,
That's
that's crazy!"
impossible.
Right? That's impossible. And even the Jetsons, watching that cartoon and stuff. So it's the dreamers, it's the creators that are creating these new worlds that people strive to have in their real life. And so when we are putting those limitations on ourselves and not allowing ourselves to our minds to breathe and expand and go out there and just dream up these crazy things, I think it would be such a boring place.
Yeah, and like, who would have thought, when I was in high school or, even when I was in college, that there would be phones that were more capable of doing things than the computers we had in that time. It's like,
Hmm.
the computers were awesome. Like the internet wasn't really a big thing until later on in high school, it's like now we have freaking phones that are 1/100th the size of the computers we had back when we were in elementary school.
I'm, think about it. I think there's more power in a smartwatch than they had going to the moon.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's like that blows my mind.
It does. And it's so cool because the capability that we have now versus back when we were young really makes you wonder what kind of crazy shit we can invent in our stories that we'd be like, all right, well, look, we thought this was impossible when we were kids and it happened. So look, we're going to say that this could happen no matter how impossible that it is. And it does. It really helps feed the creativity of coming up with new things that, would never seem possible.
Mhm.
Like the hoverboard from Back to the Future. There's people still trying to create that.
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, you're seeing shades of it right now with those what do you call them? They're calling them hoverboards, but they're not. But
Oh yeah, yeah.
what the hell are they called? Like my ass would never be on it because I would bust my ass. But Danny D, that's right. Jack hailed Napster. I mean, Napster was that it was such an amazing technology to use torrents and small files to make the greater file and things like that. I
Yep.
mean, of course, people were going to take advantage of it and maybe do bad things and stuff and pirating music. I'm one where just buy the music, buy the album and stuff like that, support the creator. But that showed what the possibilities were as far as imagination and technology.
We got a segue. And that even those things have some cool shit. So like I was looking the other day online. Sorry, I don't mean to derail completely
Yeah,
with
no,
this
go
stuff,
ahead.
but
I love this conversation.
I'm on Best Buy. Like I keep getting ads from them, and I quit watching stuff because like with doing my project and my medical situation and all the stuff that's happened over last year, we don't have the money to buy extra stuff. So like I like totally quit looking at stuff at Best Buy. Like I don't care what the coolest, because I'm like a huge tech geek. Like when new stuff comes out, I'm like, ooh, I gotta get this and try it out and check it out. And so I caved in around Black Friday, and I was like, I wonder what kind of cool shit's out there now. They make a go-kart kit for the Segway. You freaking attach it, and you lean the Segway down, and it's a fucking go-kart.
What?
Yeah, you can turn your Segway into a go-kart. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. Who thought of this? And it only does like 6 miles an hour, but it's like, how cool is that? You can turn your
That
freaking
is
Segway
really cool.
into a go-kart. I'm like, it's awesome. It's like one of those old wheelie things that you could get that had the handbrake on it, and it would spin out of control when we were kids. I can't remember what it was called. They
Oh,
brought them back.
it wasn't like the big wheels, but it was kind of like its crazy cousin.
Yeah, it was kind of like the Crazy Cousin of the Big Wheel, and they brought them back here a couple of years ago because they seen them at Walmart. They had them on the Black Friday. I was like, holy crap, I haven't seen those in like 25 years. But yeah, I was like, who would have thought to just be like, hey, let's make a conversion kit for our Segways that we can turn into a go-kart because people will buy that. And it's like $700. I'm like, holy shit, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, but that's so cool.
Yeah, and it doesn't even include the Segway. You have to have the Segway already.
Oh man.
Yeah, I was like, man, I really want this. I'm gonna put this on my wish list. I was like, oh shit, I gotta buy a Segway too. I'm like, delete.
Yeah. You know what? You keep it on your wish list. It's like something's to strive for. Who knows?
Yeah,
You might win the lotto.
Yeah. Zeno Nanite becomes the #1 hit bestseller in 2021. I got a Segway go-kart. That's my number one. Cruising down the street in my Segway.
Oh my god. I could see you doing that.
I would too. To go all rebel and have like the flags, the United States flags waving on it.
Yeah, you know what? My dream vehicle is actually an old Volkswagen Beetle. I mean, you hear people talking about their my dream Lamborghini or my dream whatever. I'm like, no, I just want a bug.
Yeah, I can see that. Meredith makes it big. Yeah. The Compendium of Dread takes off. She's on anthology number 75.
And
she goes out and buys her beloved bug.
And she drives up to a con. Beep, beep.
So Meredith, over the last several years, you've come up with several great books and you've made a ton of money. What was the first thing you purchased?
Yeah, an old beat up bug.
Yeah.
Living the dream.
These are things, if you already have the Segway, just get the cardboard boxes that have been getting all the Amazon packages sent to you and put it around it. They're yours to go-kart cruising down the street. Like an adult Power Wheel. I want to convert Segway into wheelchair now and have a downhill race with Jack, Russ, and Lewis that will draw boobs.
Take pictures.
I have a 68 VW kit car.
See. I would probably go for... what is it? 61? 61 or 62? I can't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, that's the dream car.
Yeah, my dream car would be a Dodge Viper. Like, I always loved the Vipers, and then that show Viper came out, and as terrible as it was, I still loved watching it because it was cool as shit. Because the Viper had like ion cannons that popped out of the sides of the doors, and I was like, that is cool as shit. One of these days I'm going to own a Viper, and it's going to have ion cannons on it that are going to be able to disable vehicles and shit. And
I can see you driving up to a con like that, take pictures of your vehicle.
Yeah. And then they had this now as I'm an adult. So this was, back when I was in my teens. So now as an adult, they had this Missouri lottery thing where you bought the scratcher and then you submitted if you bought 10 tickets, you got an entry in to win a Dodge Viper. And my wife's like, like, oh yeah, I bet you'd be so excited to win the Viper. I was like, I wouldn't take the Viper. She's like, yeah, you would. I was like, no, I'd take the cash prize for it. She's like, why the hell would you do that? I was like, do you really think I can afford insurance on a Dodge Viper? I'm like,
Oh,
and the other thing is people don't think
God,
about.
Russ, that's so adult.
I know, isn't that terrible? So like
Oh
the first
man.
thing my adult brain goes to is I have to pay taxes on it and I have to pay insurance because like they don't just give you those vehicles; you have to pay taxes on them. So a $90,000 vehicle, like God, I can barely afford to pay taxes on a $30,000 vehicle. I could
Mm-hmm.
not imagine what the taxes would be on a $90,000 vehicle. I'm like, yeah, just give me the money, I'm good. I'll go buy me like a Nissan Skyline GTR and I'll just put a Viper kit on it and pretend.
Yep.
Yep.
Hey, I happen to drive a $750 car. I'm not missing any zeros there, trust me.
Yeah.
But you know what? I love the idea of not having a car payment. So,
I need
the sacrifice of being an adult and going, yeah, I'd like a little bit of money in my pocket instead of in the car. I'll take the $750 vehicle. And you can't find those anymore. Oh my gosh, it's so hard to find like a $500. I remember when I was younger, they were giving the cars away. Like my neighbor is just like, you can have this car if you get it out of my driveway. It's like, yeah, you can't find that anymore.
Yeah, and it's really funny. My wife and I were talking about that the other day because, like, I was driving by a used car lot, and I'm like, I remember the first car I bought was an '89 Chevy Celebrity. It was silver. I mean, granny car. Thing could do sick ass burnouts though, and it got good gas mileage because it was a tank. Man, that thing was super ass heavy in the curves, but boy, it could roast them off. And I think it was like weekly at my job when I was in high school that I would get told, "Hey, you got to stop burning out when you leave here at night." And so like that night I wouldn't burn out, and then the next night I'd be like, and so but my first car was like $1,500, and it was a damn good car. I drove it for like 60,000-70,000 miles before I wrecked it, but and now I drive by and I see stuff like that, and it's like $6,500. I'm like, holy shit, wow, times have changed. You can't find a car under $5,000. Like, it could have 200,000 miles on it and be a hoopty with like bald tires on it. And they're like, I'll take no less than 4,500.
Oh my God. Yeah, Florida. So I live in Florida, and for some reason they think their trucks are dipped in gold or something. It's like, it's a piece of shit and it doesn't run, and you want $5,000 for it?
Yeah.
Like, why?
The body's worth at least $3,000.
Right. I mean, you'd think so because when I was up in New York, with all of the snow and the salt and everything like that, the undercarriage was always kind of rotted out before the top was. In Florida, it looks like shit because it's being baked, but you don't have to worry about the salt. It's like, oh man. But yeah, I missed that. I had oh gosh, what year was it? I think it was an 82, like a Cutlass Supreme. And I had that at college, and we put like, we tried to see how many people could fit in it. So people were like sitting on top of people on top of people. It was like 15 people by the time we were all said and done. It was like, you see the movies where they're trying to fit as many people into a phone booth as possible. That's what we did with my car. So it was like arms and legs and heads all. It was so fun. I missed that car.
Man,
it was a boat. That thing was huge.
Yeah, I miss that Celebrity. That was a great car. He said my buddy had a Celebrity and the life was the same as Russ's, donuts and jumping trees. Man, I miss that thing. It was badass. I'll never forget it too. I was so butthurt because I took it to get the brake, the rotors turned, and like I left the car place and I went to stop it. It was like ka-chunk, ka-chunk, ka-chunk because heat stress cracked the rotors. And it was probably like not shortly after that the brakes gave out in a corner and I was going too fast and I went off in the ditch.
Oh man.
So it survived after that. It still ran, but I ended up trading in for a 95 Chevy Lumina. Mm-hmm. Ooh, classy.
Yeah, I like my old vehicles.
Well, see, the nice thing is, it's not like it is now. I bought my own vehicles. with my own money. You know, I worked
Mhm.
since I was 13. I bust tables and wash dishes, and I saved all that money up. And when I was old enough to get my permit, I went and bought my first car. And then since I was stupid with my first one, I bought my second car. And, you know, there's nothing like, you know, working for money and really appreciating the stuff that you buy. And it's
Mhm.
like now you see a lot of that. Oh, I'll buy your car for you. And it's like people wonder why kids don't respect things anymore. Sorry.
Exactly.
I know that's probably
No,
going to make
I
people
agree.
mad, but it's the
I
truth.
agree. Yep. Let them earn it. That way they can appreciate it and respect it.
Well, and
You
that's the
know.
difference between my wife and I. So I grew up with, you know, I bought everything of my own, and I learned to respect my stuff. My wife like was handed everything, and I don't mean that in an ignorant way. You know, with her dad passing away and stuff, a lot of that was to try to help pad that, but it gave her less appreciation for things, and she sees that because she sees how I am about my stuff versus how she is. So she's learned more to respect things
Mhm.
because I get mad.
Well, that's it. Like my kids were like they would they would get a whole bunch of gifts from relatives, whether it was their dad or whether it was an aunt or an uncle, and but they were living with me at the time, and it's like, so, like, let's just say at the time it was PlayStation. They had no problem taking those controllers and throwing it against the wall because they were raging about some friggin' game, and they didn't care. They're like, it's okay, Dad, that'll get me another one.
Yeah.
I'm like, in the meantime, I've got a hole in my wall and a broken controller, and your attitude here, you know. And it wasn't until, well, I would say just, maybe a few years ago when they started working, and their dad was like, nope, not buying you shit anymore. Go get it yourself. And now they take care of their stuff. They're not throwing that stuff anymore. So yeah, it takes a little bit of growing up and just saying, no, kick you out of the nest. Go get it yourself. And if you don't take care of it, you're learning the consequences of that.
And then Lewis asked if you had spoke rims and hydros on your Cutlass.
It was like the very basic land yacht, so whatever it
Basically,
came,
and yeah.
it was like basically a step away from the junkyard when I got it. So
So you want to talk about a funny story? I'll tell a funny story about step away from a junkyard. So we had this guy Dustin when I went to college, and he had this beater piece of shit like Crown Vic. Like this thing had been rode hard and put away wet, and then it died, and then somebody Frankensteined it, and then it was rode hard and put away wet again. Like, I'm not
oh
kidding you.
no.
This thing had no suspension on it. It was like riding on the freaking. The suspension was riding on. The body was riding on the frame. There was no suspension left.
Yeah.
The tires were like almost to the point that you could see the steel radial in them. And this guy was from like Charlotte County in St. Louis, and so he's got this hoopty ass Crown Vic. It had a $2,000 sound system, and the car was worth $400. And
Yeah, sounds about
so
right.
I'm like, hey, Dustin, I'm like, look, dude, like your transmission is getting ready to fall out of your car. Like literally, I think there was 2 bolts holding his transmission. You could see it like dropping down in the back. And he's like, oh man, it's good. He's like, oh, it's all good. Well, so needless to say, over like Christmas break, the fucking transmission falls out of this car. And he's like, I don't have the money to fix it. He's like, screw it, I'll just buy a new car, blah, blah, blah. And I'll transfer my $2,000 system into another $500 car. And so he calls for a wrecker, and the wrecker's not going to be able to come till the next day because it's Christmas vacation. We didn't go home. We were there. Nobody was really there, and they're like, we'll be by sometime tomorrow. We can't come today. And so we all conspire together, and we're like, we're gonna just tear the shit out of this car. We're gonna spray paint penises and flames on the hood. We busted all the windows out. We took all the the alternator and all that shit off of
Oh
it to
man.
sell for scrap. We were jumping up and down on the roof of the car and smashing it in. Well, we're out there for like an hour and a half, just totaling this car. Flames, penises, all kinds of shit. I mean, whatever we could think of. And finally, after like almost 2 hours, a cop pulls up.
Oh no.
And he's like, what are you doing, boys? And we're like, and Dustin's like, He just walks up with the cop like, he's hot shit. He just walks up. He's like, "Here's the title for the car. It's mine. We're
Uh-huh.
waiting for the wrecker to come get it." So the cop goes and gets in his car and sits in there, and he's just running the stuff on the computer, and you can just tell he's just smiling from ear to ear before he gets out of the car. And we're like, what's this guy gonna say? He gets out of the car and he walks over. He goes, "Well, boys, there's no law in the state of Missouri that says you can't destroy your own shit, so have a great day." And got in his car and left. And like we were like, "Holy shit, that really just happened." So we
That's
just
so
went
cool.
back to tearing this car up. So here's where the story takes a really bad turn. So like 20 minutes after that happens, an old lady drives by in one of them land boats, and her head's on a swivel, blows through a stop sign, smokes another car, and spins it around twice. Like,
no.
The cops showed up and we like bailed. We're like, "All right, cool. Cops are here. We're out. This never happened."
Oh my God.
But it blew my mind. We're in the middle of a huge city for 2 hours destroying a car before the cops finally showed up. And then he's just like, "Well,
do you think it
boys,"
was a neighbor that called, or he just happened to be driving by?
I have no idea. I really don't. But I will
so
never forget that line my entire life. I will be old and senile and have Alzheimer's. I will still remember that.
Oh
"Well,
my God.
boys, there's no law in the state of Missouri that says you can't destroy your own shit. Have a good day." Like it was like something from Super Troopers.
You should write that into a story if you haven't already.
I thought you were gonna ask if the cop could join in destroying the car.
Seriously, I probably would have.
You're picking up the kids from school and boom.
I have to tell you, we had one old vehicle. Holy crap! We've had so many. And the trunk was rotted out, and somehow the suspension went through the trunk, and so like the back of the car was just sitting on the chassis, and we're like, enough is enough, because if you went over a bump and the railroad tracks and stuff like that, it was just like ka-chunk, ka-chunk, it was like, that's got to be hurting it more than it already is. I mean, I know it's a piece of shit, so we took it over to my family's house, and they always had barbecues and stuff like that, and fire pit in the backyard. And so always a bunch of guys hanging out. It's just come on over. So we had about 3 guys lift it. And then we tried to put a piece of wood in there to go across it, just so that it would lift for a little while. That lasted maybe about a quarter mile. And after that, it was just like, fuck it. I need another free car.
She can't do it anymore, Captain. She's giving it all she's got.
Fun times, though. Fun times.
Man. It's always great going down memory lane and thinking about all the crazy shit we did when we were kids, because you could never see half the stuff that we got away with.
Oh, yeah.
You wouldn't get away with it for like 2 minutes. Like, how strict they are about everything. Like, we used to drink out of freaking garden hoses and everything like that. Now it's oh God, don't do that. I'm like, I survived. What's wrong with that? Wait,
it's like garden hoses and I joke, but I mean, true story that remember the Elmer's paste that had the little popsicle stick in it?
Popsicle stick.
I'm like, oh yeah, delicious. Yeah. Minty. And my friends are like, they're like, no, not what's wrong with you. That explains a lot. I'm like, yeah. Oh my goodness. Danny, what do you have to say here? I had a neighbor that took the rear shocks out of his old caddy. So when he hit the brakes, the back would hop up and down like it had hydros. Well, that's one way to do it.
Man. So what going back to about the book a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, we kind of pivoted a little bit.
That's all right. That's what's so fun about the show, is talking about old times, reminiscing, people relaxing, people getting a chance to know who you are. So growing up, we were talking about old times. Growing up, did you ever read any comic books, or were you into comic books at all?
Oh, okay. So my father was in the Army supporting a family of 6. So we had no money. But we did have the Sunday Funnies. And that was always it was a good time because we had our routines. Sundays, Dad would have the entire paper, and he would take his time because he knew we wanted the funnies so bad. And he would take his time, and then when he put the comics on the couch and says, "Okay, you can have them," then we would run off with it. So I have my favorites like Beetle Bailey and um, I don't think Luann was out then, but I mean, Beetle Bailey was it because Army,
Yeah.
it's like natural. But I remember taking Play-Doh and putting it on there and carrying it around with me, just having it, the ink superimposed and getting all dirty and stuff like that. I mean, the ink was everywhere. And that was something that I loved, just maybe that's where the ink in my veins came from and why it feels like I kind of fell into the comic book world, just maybe I was orbiting it for a long time. But we did have, when I was in junior high, my friends and we were obsessed with like Star Wars. We were obsessed with Indiana Jones and a few other things of that era, and so we were writing scripts back then. And I have to say, when Spaceballs came out, we all went out to the theater to watch that, and we were looking at each other going, "Holy shit! Somebody stole our notebook." I mean, it was like that was the crazy stuff that we were writing, but we also did crossovers between like Indiana Jones and Star Wars, like Han Solo meets Indiana Jones and they're looking at each other. And so we wrote all these
There's
crazy
a striking
stories.
resemblance.
Right, exactly. It's like and it was like punny, they got to a fork in the road and they picked it up, all, those kind of things.
Yeah.
So all the goofy stuff that we wrote. But then we decided, hey, let's write a script. Let's create a comic book. And it was a Star Wars fan comic book. And at that time it was Xerox. Like you had to have the carbon paper and all that in order to do that. And you had to crank the damn thing. So I was the one that cranked it for like the teacher, because I was one of the teacher's pets. So I admit that. Because I'm
I don't know if that gets out of context. It just doesn't sound right.
You're right. It doesn't.
I'll
have to rethink how I tell this story. So we were able to sneak in there and get a couple copies. We sent one off to Steven Spielberg and George Lucas and immediately got a cease and desist. So that kind of killed the idea of making a comic book and using any of those characters. So like really early on, we learned no. That was scary for like an 11-year-old.
Yeah. Like, cease and desist. What did we do?
Yeah, for writing this story, these characters that we love, it's like, yeah, hard lesson in copyright there, kid. Don't do it again, or else.
Or else we're gonna haul your ass to jail, even though you're 11.
Like, we're gonna own you. It's like, but I'm 11.
Yeah.
But
I don't know what
it started from then.
And I don't know why I don't know what it was when we were kids. The smell of newspaper is like totally different than what it is now. But like back then, it smelled like diesel grease. Like it was so strong. Because I used to remember, getting silly putty, and you would take silly putty, and like you said, with Play-Doh and superimposing it onto the silly putty, carrying it around, and you'd stretch it out and make the faces all funny and stuff.
Yeah.
And actually, trip down memory lane, I bought. They had silly putty at Dollar Tree here down the street, and I was like, oh, I wonder if you can still do that. So that was the first thing I did when I got home. I was like, does it still work?
Oh, when they had it in the gumball machine for like a penny or 5 cents.
Yeah. And now it's like $1.75 just to get a sticky hand. It's like, dude, I used to get those for $0.25.
Yeah. So much fun. But yeah, I mean, that's really where the creative process started. But I have to say, I started writing because I was teased and bullied when I was a kid. And so it was my only friend. It's where I got solace from.
Yeah, it was
And
your
I would
escape. You
write.
could make your own universe.
Oh yeah, I mean, I wrote poetry. I tried to do song lyrics. I That's where a lot of the horror came in because I couldn't kill them in real life. I don't have time for jail, but I sure can slay people in fiction, and really that's kind of where it started.
Becky didn't like my makeup. You're gonna die in some haunted woods in my story now.
Yeah, and it's gonna be slow and painful, and nobody's ever gonna find you.
No one will ever find you.
But
so,
it's true.
it is true. And that's the same thing for me, with everything I went through last year with the whole cancer scare and then everything. It's like writing was my escape. And it really is. It's like you can really take a lot of the emotion that you don't know what to do with because you
Hmm.
get to the point that like you feel like you could cry about stuff, but you're beyond that point and you can't cry about it. And you're like, I have nothing to do with this emotion. And it's like, and then you sit down and you write and it just pours out onto the paper, so to speak, because now
Yeah.
everything's digital, unlike it was back when you had to actually write your stories out. And, it really is. It's a great release. And it's like, there's a lot of good stuff that can come from that emotion. It's like you sit back and you're like, wow, I feel better, and this is actually really good.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, there are times when, I mean, just to be therapeutic, I would write something, and it could be like the meanest, because I'm not a mean person, but it could be the meanest thing, just vile or whatever, and I'd throw it in the fire pit and feel better just watching it just float away, and a lot of that has turned into kind of an attitude or a way of life or just my mantra is to not let it bother me so much. It's like acknowledge the crap and stuff, but don't give it too much real estate, especially if it's negative,
Yeah.
you know.
So you mentioned, that you're doing this anthology, this comic book project, but that you've been in prose for several decades. What are some of the books that you've written and published?
Well, so a lot of them honestly are written in hard copy notebooks. Some of them have been transcribed. A lot of them are on really old drives. The one book that I have published is an erotica. It's a flash fiction. Compendium of Dread is coming out of the gate. Quite honestly, going to be the first published, I guess, fiction thing. But again, I've been writing for so long that I mean, I have content all over the place from my websites. When do you remember GeoCities?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I love GeoCities. So I had so many websites over there, and then writing on different blogging platforms. My books, there were a few that I wrote that unfortunately I lost, but a couple of them that I had rejection notices for. Um, and I felt like I made it as a writer, not as an author, but as a writer. And for whatever reason, my brain has to make that distinction. Like you're not there yet. You're not an author yet. Um, so unfortunately, a lot of those got lost between moves or just destroyed, in bad storage or whatever. So I mean, quite honestly, I've only got these two that one that's published, self-published, and the other one that is coming up through this Kickstarter. And but I can't even tell you how many stories that I have, and several that I've lost. Mostly, believe it or not, romance novels. But like historical fiction or alternate historical fiction, if that makes sense. So because I love research, and a lot of that is imagination and stuff, but it is based around actual events. So the one that I've it started speaking to me again. Do your stories speak to you, Russ? Where your characters kind of they're like, hey, we haven't talked in a while. You
I
know?
can't say that.
Oh my gosh, mine do. So maybe it's a sign of insanity. I don't know.
Yeah,
But
maybe I'm not there yet. Maybe that's
I've
what it
got
is.
one story in particular that I did for NaNoWriMo. I don't know if you've ever participated in that. It's
No.
it's National Novel Writing Month. It's in the month of November. And so you're challenged to write 50,000 words. So I wrote this story um, that is kind of a vampire romance in a way, but very dark because I incorporated Elizabeth Bathory in there. Are you familiar with her?
Yeah.
She's like most one of the most prolific female serial killers of all time, and considered to be like um, a vampire. You know, where she would bathe in the blood of her servants and stuff like that. So really dark shit. So I incorporated her story into, excuse me, into this. And so, I mean, that one I could say is done, but is, the editing kills it. I don't know if you have that struggle, but I have edited stories to death where I just can't stand to look at them anymore until they start speaking to me. And this one is starting to speak to me. So I'm kind of excited about that too.
Yeah, man, I edited my book originally when it was done. I don't know how many times. And the funny thing about editing is like you'll change something because you really don't like it, and then like a week later you're like, no, I liked it the way it was better. And then you go back and change it back, and then you'll end up changing it all together from neither one of the two things that you had, whether it was what you had originally or what you
Mm-hmm.
changed it to. You'll change it to something completely different. And it's like after a while it just gets so chopped up, and you're like, all right, this isn't what I wanted it to be. And so I try not to do that. I try not to overthink it too much.
Yeah, the one time I was editing, and there was this one chapter that I couldn't get past, and I struggled so hard. I mean, like, I would take it, I would edit, I would take something out, I would edit, and I would try and circle around the damn thing, and I struggled for a couple of weeks with this one chapter, and I went to bed. I was just so frustrated. I'm like, I can't get past it. The next thing doesn't work until I get past this thing. And it wasn't even writer's block. I was writing just fine, but to try and get from point A to point C, B wasn't working. And I was like, God damn it. So I went to bed the one night, and I wasn't even thinking about it. I was just fed up. And I woke up in the middle of the night. And again, the voices were talking to me, and it said, "You don't need it." I went, "Oh, what?" It's like 3 weeks of struggle and I don't need it. And it was one of the hardest things that I did was take it out, that whole chapter. And believe it or not, it flowed so much better. I'm like telling my voice, like, where were you? You know, like, why did I have to struggle that long?
But yeah, see, that's exactly what I was thinking, Lewis. Whenever she was explaining, Compendium of Dread, I was seriously thinking of Whispers in Necropolis, because that's what Whispers in Necropolis is. It's one of Lewis's books with Codex Entertainment LLC. Is
Ooh.
it's kind of like imagine Tales from the Crypt,
Mm-hmm.
and you got the Crypt Keeper, and he's telling you these short stories, and each one of them has like a moral of the story, and that's kind of like what his book is. It's got a female crypt keeper, so to speak, that
Mm-hmm.
is telling you about these stories, and then there's like a few stories, like the very first one's about a pizza joint, and this guy leaves his wallet inside the pizza joint and ends up being the toppings on the next day's pizza,
Mm.
and business starts booming because everybody loves the mystery meat. And there's there's a lot. It's a collection, an anthology of horror,
Oh, Lewis,
and
send me that link.
so definitely check his books out. They're good.
Hmm. Yeah, and that for whatever reason, I don't know why. I don't know why that appeals to me. You know, it's just it's like watching. Remember the Addams Family? You know what? Where the girl is selling Girl Scout cookies, and Wednesday's like, "Is it made with real Girl Scouts?" Or
Yeah,
paraphrasing. And I was just like, that's brilliant. I love it.
Is it made from real Girl Scouts? You don't want me doing the Crypt Keeper voice because if I laugh, it'll blow all your eardrums out. Because like I
Do
can
it. Do it.
I can do the laugh so. So Jack and Danny, when you guys were here for the story that I told about when we went to the haunted house and I jumped out and I scared the shit out of everybody in line behind us and they all ducked to the ground, that was the laugh that I did. I come out and I went, and like everybody hit the deck and they were like, "Oh my god!" You know, they thought something was really freaking gonna murder them because there was a line and it went around this fence. And it's like a bunch of different buildings and trailers connected, and each one's a different theme. Well, there was a line from the one building that it came around the fence and then wrapped around back to the building. So our friends were on the other side of the fence. I was like, I'm going to jump out and scare them. And like everybody behind them was like, hit the deck.
That's so funny. There was one time we went to the Headless Haunted Horseman up in upstate New York. And so my sister, who I thought was a little bit braver, we were going through the corn maze. And so one of the zombies, who is like this really tall, lanky guy, I gave him a nod of the head and he ignored me. And he passed my sister because she was behind me. And then he did a quick 180 and he was like right above her and he kept on staring down at her, with his eyes all bugged and stuff. And you could see her looking up. And then she was walking, and then she was picking up her pace, and before you knew it, she was like in a full-blown run. and so I was dying. I was laughing so hard. And then my other sister was there, and we were going through the haunted house section of that. And one of the zombies went up to her and says, "What's your name?" And she goes, "Melanie." And he goes, "Melanie." And then. So we're going through this thing, and she was like, "Oh my god!" And I just started laughing. I'm like, you're not supposed to give your name out to any of these guys. And before you knew it, we were like going through, and it was like super dark, and they were just screaming her name, and she was so freaked out. I'm like, "Oh man, these are my people."
Yeah. Oh man, that's hilarious.
But that's it. It's just like things like that, where a lot of my dark stories. I want that emotion where it kind of builds up the adrenaline.
Yep.
And for some people, it just hits that nerve. They're like, "Holy shit, I didn't see that coming." And I love that. I love when it twists and you don't when you don't expect it, and I find that a lot of movies, a lot of horror that's out there, thrillers and stuff like that, it's like if you can predict the ending, it's like, oh come on,
Yep.
It's like
it's like really you could have did something else.
Yeah, it's like that's freaking lazy, man. Give me something. And so that a lot of times I strive to do that. It's not going to be all of the stories. All of the stories aren't like that. Like I said, there are some that are a little poignant, maybe a little bit more on the paranormal and stuff. But this hits a range of so many other stories because, like I told you earlier, I had to do it myself. So it was kind of compiling it into this one thing. And that's why it's not the Compendium of Dread, an anthology of horror. It's an anthology of dark fiction. And so hopefully it hits the taste buds of a lot of people.
And see, that's what I love haunted houses now. When I was a kid, I wouldn't even go through them. But so like the same one that we went to, like everybody was like totally terrified in our group. And it was so funny because this chick was like all bloody and like it looked like her face and her head was mangled. And she was just like straight up like in character, like straight faced. And she's like, "Hey, do you guys want to play a game with me?" I was like, "Sure. What do you want to play? You want to play Uno, Skippo? We can play Trouble." I'm like, "I think I got Monopoly out in the truck. You want to play?" And like, you could tell she was struggling so hard. And I think it pissed her off more than anything. And so she fueled it into like rage. And she just like tried to pretend to be full on psych. I was like, whoa. Like, these are family friendly games. There's no reason to get hateful. And it was so funny. I'm just such a douche. And my wife, when we go to them, if there's somebody with a chainsaw, she is like scared to death of people with chainsaws. I'm like, hey, she hates chainsaws. Chase her.
Yes.
And they do. Like
Yes.
the union.
We're evil. We do the same thing.
Yeah, the Union Firehouse down here. There was a guy and he had a chainsaw, and I was like, dude, she hates chainsaws. He's like, really? I was like, yeah, just chase her. She will fucking run. And
I did
he
that
did.
to my kids once. we were in the car and the kids were in the back seat, and we went up to this house. Loves Halloween. This guy had a chainsaw, and I said, do me a favor, just start chasing the car. And oh my god, yeah, you know what, thank goodness my kids are old enough to pay for their own therapy. They survived, little shits. Yeah. They deserve everything they got.
And see,
my attitude was, if they can't survive me, they're not going to survive in this world.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny too, because I'm such the prankster and I do stuff like that. And now, my son, he's going to be 6 in March, and he does the same shit to my wife now too. My wife will, be yelling at him. And he'll pretend like he don't hear, and he'll hide in the bathroom, because like right next to here is the bathroom, and then on the other side is his room. So she has to walk by the bathroom to get into his room. Well, he'll duck into the bathroom, and when she goes storming in there to see what he's into, he jumps out of the bathroom. He's like, and then he's like, Dad, I scared Mom today. It was funny. And I'm like, good job, high five.
Mm-hmm. You know what's funny? As far as pranks go, my ex has like 4 brothers, okay? And so when they were younger, what they would do is they would be on the 2nd floor, and so the youngest one, who is more gullible and everything, they would be like, hey, watch this. We're gonna flush Patrick down the toilet. And he's like, no, you're not. And it's like, just hold on a second, watch, and so they would distract him. The one brother would get all soaking wet. The other one would flush the toilet. And then the one who was soaking wet would jump out the window to the 1st floor and come out of the bathroom like, oh, what a ride, It's like, oh my gosh, fun stuff like that. I know. It's just our generation's a little whack.
Yeah. What can I say?
Jack, what are you saying here? By the time this interview is over, I'm sure there's going to be fan fiction erotica about Russell and Meredith. Ooh.
Yeah, we can come up with some stories. We can collaborate.
What would our spouses say?
Good riddance.
That's what you get for scaring the hell out of your wife.
Oh, dude, I've done it so many times. I even made her pee her pants one time, like legitimately, and she was mad. Like, she was totally mad, because I got her good, like literally, like blood curdling, end of life scream.
Oh man!
And I was like, "Did you just pee your pants?" She's like, "Shut up! I hate you." I was like, good thing we're at home.
See, now I have a story. I've shared this a couple of times, but not in a long while, where
it's turned into an issue of roadkill rampage.
I tell people that I really did try and kill my husband the one time. We were laying in bed. I had just gotten home from work. I was exhausted, and all I wanted to do was go to sleep. It was just one of those where you're so tired, you're asleep before your head hits the pillow, right? And he was already in bed. He was comfy and everything. I climb in, and I don't know what the hell possessed him, but he just poked me in the ribs. It's like, poke. And it made me jump and wake up. And I'm like, I'm trying to sleep. I'm like, don't do that again. And I can hear, I can feel his body shaking because he's laughing. He goes, poke. I'm like, God damn it, if you do that one more time, I swear to God, I'm going to kill you. All right? Like 3, 2, 1, poke. I'm like, that's it. I saw red. Like red. And I got up and I grabbed my pillow and I got on top of him, and I'm trying to suffocate the son of a bitch that keeps poking me when I'm trying to sleep. And I swear to God, I'm sitting there and I'm like real really trying to suffocate him. I wanted him dead. And I could feel his whole body shaking because I'm 5'2", he's 6'4". All right. So I'm like, nothing. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh, that's funny, motherfucker. Boom, boom, boom. And I'm punching the pillow. And now that's making him laugh even harder. I'm like, what the hell is wrong with you? He goes, that's so sweet. You're softening the blow with the pillow. I'm like, oh man, and then I started laughing. That was the end of that. But I really wanted him dead. You have no idea.
Well, at least you haven't shot your spouse in the face, so.
Right. Yeah. Or stabbed him with a high heel or anything like that. But
no,
yeah.
I legitimately shot my wife in the face with a shotgun.
Oh my God.
True story. And her mom was pissed when she found out about it because
I think I would be too.
My wife was laughing when she was telling her mom about it. So, she got this shotgun from her grandfather, and it's a 410, one of those breakdown single shots. And it came with all this ammunition, and I didn't want to throw away 410 shells because, the garbage truck goes to crush them and hits one of the primers, the fucking shotgun shells start going off, and, a little kid gets hit or something. So I'm like, we're going to go out and we're going to, try to blow these rounds just to get rid of them. And so we had T-posts behind the target that was holding the target up, and like some random pellet happened to hit that T-post just right and bounce back like 45 yards and hit her right here in the face and drew blood. And
wow.
you Dick Cheney to your wife. and so yeah.
So wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty bad. So yeah, I legitimately shot her in the face. I mean that and I caught her hair on fire one time because
my goodness.
Whenever we first met, I that was back when I smoked cigarettes, and I had a brand new lighter I just bought.
Oh no!
And so I just bought it. It was one of those cool electric ones, and her friend was with us. We went to the movies. Her friend's like, "Hey, can I borrow your lighter?" She dropped it in a water puddle, and it was electronic cigarettes, so our electronic lighter, so it never worked again. Mm-hmm. So I always used to get it out, and I'd mess with her, and I'd pretend like I was lighting it. And this one day, I get it out of the JCPenney parking lot in Washington. I'll never forget it. I get it out, and I'm like, ha, ha, ha. And I was like, and I
had a Michael Jackson moment.
I had this look on my face. She's like, what happened? I was like, nothing. Everything's fine. She's like, what happened? I can tell by the look at your face. I was like, nothing. It's fine. She's like, you're a fucking liar. I can smell it.
Right, for real. So, burning hair is nasty.
Some kind of poke tactic.
Exactly. But let a girl sleep. I mean, there's one thing, okay? Let me sleep and feed me. I'm very simple. Okay. Like really low maintenance. Those are the two things that keep me happy. So yeah, okay. So besides trying to destroy your wife for us, like what the hell? I think you got me beat.
Yeah. Oh, that's not even the half of it. There's like, if she could come in here and sit next to me, and she'd be like, "What about the one time you did this?"
Oh no.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh yeah, there's so many of those stories. Like I could never run out of them or remember all of them. Russell's backdrop is low maintenance. What's up, Stefan Abadopoulos? Windex. Get out of here. No, look what the cat's drug in. Yes, good old Circules himself. Circules.
Oh goodness!
But yeah, it's bad, and it's even worse that I'm raising a mini me that does the same things, to my wife. It's hilarious. I'm like, now I could die happy knowing that someone else will be around to give my wife shit for me when I'm gone.
That's all stuff that you can use for stories and things. I mean, those are the things that you can pass on, and let other people enjoy,
and you can write about.
So much fun. Yeah. You should definitely, if you haven't done that already, Russ, you should definitely add those somehow incorporate those into your books.
Oh yeah, and there's weekly stories
live on
now.
in infamy.
Yeah, and there's weekly stories now because having a 4 and a 5-year-old, they do crazy stuff all the time, and like there gets to be some crazy stories. Like there's one that I can't even remember that I was going to tell on air the other day that just happened recently that I just about passed out. It was about freaking hilarious. But it's been that kind of month, you know. Writing isn't Russell's thing. That's right. Yeah. What can
Well,
I
I mean,
do?
speaking of writing, what are you working on next? Because I'm curious.
So next, I am working on Xenonanite Titan Part 2. So originally, the book was 900 pages. Xenonanite Titan was a 900-page novel. And then, so I just was writing the story, and I was like, I'll break it up however, you know, later on, or we'll do whatever with it. I'll just put it out there, or this, that, and the other, and yada, yada, yada. And then it went into deep storage with Roger Kevin open heart surgery at a
Hmm.
week old. I just dropped it. And so The Fall Before the Rise, which was the book that was just on Kickstarter, is actually the first part of the book, and
Hmm.
then there'll be a part 2 and a part 3. So part 2's in process. And then one of the things I want to do with the new year, not only am I going to work on, you know, doing a weekly comic book thing with Roderick, I'm gonna let him draw art and we'll make up a story for it, and, you know, because he really
Cool.
gets into the stuff. He loves watch it. Like he will sit and watch all the shows and all the interviews that I do with people, and he's like, you know, oh Dad, the artist you had on the other night was really cool, and oh I liked, you know, this picture that he drew. And I
Hmm.
don't let him watch all of them because some of them will get get really crazy, but he likes watching those. And he's really into art. He loves watching stuff when stuff does art live and stuff like that. Doesn't have to write. He just has life experiences. He causes a lot of these experiences. So I'm gonna start working on that weekly comic with Roderick and doing something and getting him involved because, you know, with him having the heart issues, you know, we don't know. The oldest kid that's got the issue that he has with the truncus is only then was 10, so I guess they're like 15 now, so they don't know
Hmm.
like life expectancy or what kind of limitations he'll have throughout his life because he's got an artificial coronary artery. You know, it calcifies, it gets brittle if he gets a hit to the chest, or if he falls on it, it could shatter,
Hmm.
just all kinds of shit. And so I was like, you know, if this is something that he really likes and he gets good at, this is something he could do as a career because it's not anything that is real strenuous and we don't have to worry about him getting hurt and, you know, stuff like that. And so I want, if that's what he's into, I'm going to feed that as long as, you know, he wants to do it. So I told him that, you know, we'll start writing a comic together. So I'm going to work on that. And then I'm going to start putting either a weekly or a bi-weekly. I'm going to start like writing a story and just putting it out, and like kind of like the Mandalorian, how you get bits and pieces every Friday. I'm gonna
Hmm.
do something like that. I'm just gonna like creatively write a story, and, you know, just to put my writing style out there and give people a chance to read some of the stuff that I come up with. That way, when Xenonanite Titan makes its return either to Kickstarter or if I do decide to print run it myself, people will be like, "Hey, I really like this. I want to check this out," you know, and help, you know, build on, you know, the fan base and stuff like that. And I thought it would be fun. It'd keep my creative juices flowing with everything.
Hmm. Well, kind of circling back, and my dog's getting ready to howl in her sleep. So cute. Um, you know, I don't remember what your goal was for Nanite Titans, the first go around, but like I said with mine, the first one was a complete and utter failure because um, and I'm not saying that you didn't pay attention to yours. I saw what you were doing, but I would say give it another go. I mean, you've built up more support. People are following you. They know the topic and the book because you've been promoting it and stuff like that. I'd say, hell, give it another shot. You know, that's what I did. I didn't want to give up on it. And I put it out there with purpose. It was just like, okay, this is the thing. I was told by so many people that prose doesn't do well on Kickstarters. You know, I mean, and let me tell you, it's quite honestly far exceeded my expectations. Where I'm looking at the first stretch goal, and there are some people who are just like, well, you set the goal really low, Meredith, and I was like, well, because if you saw the first time out, I made what, $61 on it, and Kickstarters is all or nothing. and I set the goal at 500 because, you know, who knows? It's like, is the comic book world going to accept this prose or this idea that you're seeing prose first, but I've actually invested money into turning these into comics, using my skill and the things that I'm learning to turn these into scripts, invest money in artists, and put books out there that I think people are going to enjoy. You know, so I would encourage you to like look at it. And what is it that James is saying? My first one was failure. Now I relaunch Omni, and so far it's blowing away my first fail. Exactly. You know, it's like I saw Omni for the first time. I put it um, in my updates. You know, just as a way to cross promote, because it's like, why the hell not?
Yeah.
And you know, doing the things that you're doing now and building up that network, I would highly encourage you to do that. Bring it to life, you know?
It's gonna happen one way or another. I don't
Yeah.
know. I'm weighing options. I'm definitely thinking about rerunning it on Kickstarter, and like you said before, I'm thinking about doing a print run with it, possibly on my own. So I don't
Hmm.
know. We'll wait, see how these first few months go.
Yeah.
There's a lot of projects that are launching with it being January, and you know,
Well, and I'm kind of curious to know because James says that his first launch was a failure too. Um, I don't know if he kickstarted anything in between them. I know I didn't. So what you're seeing is like then and now for the same project. And I felt a little weird about that, to tell you the God's honest truth. I was like, do I do this? Do I try and move it over to Indiegogo? I mean, like, what the hell am I doing here? Why am I doing this?
yeah,
And again, for me, it was that purpose of saying, hey, you know, the book is essentially done. I decided that I was going to add 5 new stories because I wanted that special tier, and it was a way to push me, but also a means to a way. It's like, okay, you know, whatever's coming from this book after delivery, after the shipping costs and everything to get this book into people's hands, you know, my that manuscript is going up on Amazon. It's going to be available there. However, it's launching the comics. And I know that that's something that appeals to the Kickstarter crowd, especially 2020, where I mean, Kickstarter made like stupid money with comic books, you know?
yeah. And I don't think he ran any projects in between then, because he's got Project 34, which is the one that he wrote and published himself.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
then I think he tried publishing Omni through, well, not publishing, but raising funds for Omni on Kickstarter. And I think
Yeah.
this is the second project that he's run. No, it failed 2 years ago, and I just kept plugging away on the other issues and decided to try again. Yeah, I
Yeah.
was going to say,
I mean, did it feel weird for you though, James? I'm kind of curious. It felt weird for me a little bit. Like, I failed. It's like, do I want to? What if it fails again? You know, there was that doubt.
yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I don't know. I It's not that I don't want to kickstart it again. I know there's I don't know. I know a lot of it is you know cross promoting, because I'm doing event. This is an origin story. So Xenonanite Titan is an origin story of Raziel and how Xenonanite Titan comes to be. And so I didn't want to do it like Wolverine and all the other, you know, hey, we're going to do 6 billion issues, and then like, you know,
Hmm.
50 years later, hey, here's the origin story and nobody cares. You know, it's kind of like the Punisher, like I like to say, you know, without knowing that his family was killed and why he has this vengeance that burns inside of him, what causes that really doesn't make a whole lot of sense to have the character Punisher. And it's the same way for Xenonanite Titan. You know, I feel like a character's origin speaks volumes for why they act the way they do, or why they do the things they do later on, or why they are the way they are about things. And without having this prior knowledge, you have a lot of questions. It's like, oh, I'm just going to start the series about this guy with a suit that has all this special shit that it does, and nobody knows who this guy is, what happened to him, where the suit came from. And that's what this prose is it was going to be, wasn't so much just as an origin story. It's like, I don't art, you know, so
Hmm. Yeah, I
I'm
know this
creative at
pain.
writing.
Hmm.
I'm creative at writing. I'm like, I'm gonna write this prose. I'm gonna get it out there. I'm gonna push it, and get people to be like, man, this is a damn good book. And hopefully an artist out there will hear, hey, this guy wants to do a comic book series with this. I love this book. It speaks to me. I want to help him with the comic book, and have an artist come to me, or me find an artist that's like, hey, I love the story and I want to work on it, and have a symbiotic relationship to where we can work on the book and put out a great project. Because you could have two people on a project. You could have an artist and a writer that's totally into it, and then have another person doing the flat or whatever on the comic book, and them not be into it, and it ruin the whole project. So I want to get somebody that's as passionate about my project as me. And not only that, but to get my creative writing out there, and, possibly open up venues with other people to say, hey, I really like how you're creative. Would you like to work with me? I really have this idea for a story and a character. I just suck at writing. I can do the art for it. Could you write a story on it? And this is kind of like my break into that of, here's my prose, here's my writing style, here's my creativity level, and this is what I want to do with my project. And I'm open to working on other projects with other people, either collaborating, like on a project like what Lewis has going on with Nebula Pearl launching next month. It's a collaboration project. You got, Karen Nicole, Alfred Trujillo, and CB Zane, Michael Shoemaker, and Wendy Steen Shaner. Everybody wrote a few pages and then passed it on. Somebody wrote the next few pages and then they passed it on. Something, anything like that. I really would love to be a part of that. Or Cthulhu Invades Oz. You had all these people wrote a different story for a different character of that book. And it's like, that's really cool, and it really gives people a chance to show off their creativity. And this is, Zenith Night Titan, book 1, 2, and 3 is going to be like my break into the world of being able to show that.
Well, you know what? You're getting a lot of information and some, I think, personally good advice. People who say, like Steph is saying, go set the relaunch up for success. If it's basically, we know you've got the book done, so maybe set the goal lower so that you reach it, and then you can hit, go for stretch goals. Little things like that where it makes a huge difference, instead of feeling like you're struggling to hit that goal. And again, by building up the network and working on other things, it's like, just you haven't stopped creating, you haven't stopped writing, you haven't stopped live streaming and interviewing people and stuff like that. And and it's not easy because coming for me personally, I do Geek Speak through Geek Insider.
Yeah.
I'm used to being the one who interviews people, so me sitting in the hot seat over here is just like, oh, what is this? Could be a hot mess, you never know. And then Danny D says, do a one shot of the first couple chapters. It's like, why not? Because it's so epic. Why not have that first book so you get that credit out there? I think it means a lot to show that you've delivered something.
Yeah,
I mean,
and I thought
that's
about
another great idea.
Yeah, and I thought about doing that, but I didn't want any of the comic portion of the book to fall back on the prose. I wanted it to be something new. I mean, there's a couple of parts of the book that later on could be like an alternate series, spinoff series that could go off, that we could explore other parts of the book if people had questions about it later on. But the other issue is money. I mean, being $3,000 deep in a project already, and even if with Kickstarting it, I would be breaking even on the print run, not even making the money back on the art. I just can't justify spending, another $1,500 to be like, hey, I need art for this, and we're gonna put art to the first few chapters of the book, and then sell that and just break even on the print run, and then I'm $4,500. You know what I'm saying?
I have to tell you something with Terraformed Continuum. What I'm doing is, because I mentioned the dying, it's the first 8 pages, and it's an introduction into the story, into what the idea is for the rest of the book. The rest of the book doesn't have art in it. At this point in time, it will. And that's a process in and of itself, because of the upfront money that it would cost for me to get an artist. But by having those 8 pages in a collection or an anthology, It's just saying, hey, there's something on the horizon coming from this, and you're going to get the expanded story. You're going to get the finished story. Now, whether or not maybe in the next issue of Continuum, you get the next 8 pages until you get all 24. And then at that point, I'm taking all of them and putting them into a one shot.
Yeah.
And it's like that is something, because again, your book is so epic. I mean, 900 pages of prose blows my mind. I mean, that blows my mind. But to take a little piece of that makes sense, where you have that little mini story arc to introduce people into these characters and that world. I don't think that it would compromise your book at all.
Yeah, the only thing I worry about though is doing the story arc into in that little comic book. It's like I'm going to be people that read books probably won't buy the comic, and people that buy the comic probably don't want to read a book. So
Yeah.
that's another issue I got to worry about is the people that I'm trying to sell the book to wouldn't be interested in the comic book, and the people that get the comic and are like, oh, hey, cool, this is a comic series coming out, and then they realize when book one launches that, oh, it's a novel. And it's like, I tried to be straightforward with everyone when they're like, hey, is this? And it's like, no, it's a novel. It's not a comic book. It's going to be a comic book
Right.
once the origin story is completed, but I need to get my prose out there and show off my writing capability. So that's the thought that I had with doing the small comic book is it really going to appeal to who I'm trying to sell the project to? And the people that buy it, are they going to be interested in, in the end, a 900 page novel? Which, I mean, that's why I broke it up into pieces. It's like, 900 pages is a commitment, and it's real, you can't really print them that big anyway. So it was going to be broken up eventually, but printing it out in the smaller form and, doing the art, that was one of the big things that I wanted to do, not only to show off the character and show off that, eventually, this is going to be a comic book, but I wanted to help advertise a lot of the artist friends that I have. Some of them are up and coming artists, people that don't have a whole lot of work that's been published. Some of them don't have work that's ever been published. Excuse me. But I wanted to give them a chance to reach an audience through, like with Steph. Steph's already got an audience within the comic book world, but people in the book world might not know who he is. They may look at his piece of art and go, hey, I wanted him to do a cover for my book. It's opening up a new world for Steph. And so I respect all of these artists and all these people that I worked with. And I'm like, hey, I want to get some art. It'll jazz up the book. It'll look really awesome. It'll help add Easter eggs. You're going to see the art and you're going to be like, why is this like this? Then you're going to read the story and it's going to make sense. But, it's going to help put your foot in the door into another form of media. Whether Wendy or Chris McJunkin or Ed Williams, any of those, the art may not be for everybody, but it's a foot in the door for them. Somebody out there is going to see it and they're going to be like, I love this. I want them to do something for me. And that's what I wanted to achieve with it. So it was kind of like a collaboration project of, I wrote this badass book. Let's add some art in it. I love all the pieces that were done. And in the end, it's going to be freaking awesome. And book 2 is going to blow book 1 out of the water. So it only gets better from here.
Well, the thing that Steph Wilson says over here, know it will succeed before you launch. And, in my first attempt, Steph, I knew it was going to fail, and it did. So it wasn't so much a mindset thing, but more of a learning curve. And in a way, I guess I kind of sabotaged myself because I didn't do anything right, so it's one of those things where, again, when you look at it and you try to look at it objectively, because Russ, we were talking about this before, we work on something, we edit something, and it's like, and then we try to release it out into the world. It's like, oh, please don't tell me it's an ugly baby. I don't want to hear it. So a lot of times I think when it comes to, for me, with the compendium, turning these stories, which are like these, in my head, perfect little nuggets, and then to rip them apart for a script that looks kind of sort of like it, like it's maybe recognizable, but not quite the same. I mean, that's exciting. So not being so, oh, I'm not going to say I'm not attached. I am attached. I'm really really attached, and I love uh, these things that I've done in the journey to marry them with art and see that happen in another forum. But I kind of get the sense that it's maybe a little bit of ego and maybe that unwillingness to say no, I'm not touching it because I already did, and I'm going to push back on you a little bit as far as that because I want to see something coming from you and to recover from that loss, because I have to tell you, even though I didn't try with the first time out, it was devastating. I'm like, only 6 people love me, and not one of them was a family member.
Yeah.
I was like, what the hell is that? So to recover from that, and I think that's, for me, that's why it's a little bit weird to see it the second time out, going, okay, I planned this to win, to get across the finish line. Now it's time for stretch goals and things, and make it happen, because I really don't know a lot of people. My background as far as being in so many of these groups and writing, but never really having things published. But my orbit was romance novels, and it wasn't until I just said, hey, I'm going to write an erotica piece and I'm just going to put it out there just to say I have something published, even though it was self-published, and that was kind of when it wasn't really quite cool yet to be self-published. It was still, people were thumbing their nose at it going, oh, well, it's because you haven't been accepted into one of the big publishing houses. I'm just like, fuck you. I wanted to self-publish because I wanted to, it was a means to a way, get my name out there,
Yeah.
do something, show for something, instead of the notebooks or the hard drives that have my work on it. It's like, if I have access to them anymore, to the places that I've blogged or shared my stories with, just because I was sick and tired of losing my content to hard drives and computers and things like that. So it's like all of those things where I didn't want to make excuses anymore. I just wanted to get out there and deliver something. Not necessarily for myself, but I guess in a way it's kind of a legacy. Like, what kind of content am I putting out there? Will other people enjoy my stories? And I really want, because the passion that you have for it and this 10-year journey to write your damn book, it's like, don't let it collect dust. If you have to put out little bits of it at a time, at least it's something. Build that legacy, and then from there you can build your following. I mean, that's the best advice that I could give you. Whether
And
you take it or
James,
not is up to you.
and James, that's not right, because we are your family.
Yes, sir.
You know what? Family doesn't have to be blood. Us as indie creators, we are family, because this is what we do. I'm out here promoting you and Meredith and Wendy Scene Shaner and Kara Nicole and all these other people, because we're indie family, and we're there for each other. So there's been plenty of people in your family that have backed your book, buddy, and we'll help you get to the finish line. And that's why I wanted to do this other project that I want to work on. I want to write the story and put it out there in bits and pieces. Like, do it every Friday or every other Friday, depending on, I got to see how much I can write in a week's time. So I'm going to probably set my goal as every other week at first until I see how things go. And then, maybe bump it up to once a week. But that's why I wanted to write a different story and something that I can put out there. Not Xenonanite Titan related, but actually just put out a story and be, because Xenonanite Titan, you see it and you're like, oh, it's a sci-fi story. It's not just a sci-fi story. It's more than that. I mean, even Philip Russert said that, when he read it, he said, this isn't just a sci-fi story. It contains so many different layers, so many different themes to it, and he's like, it's a family story. He's like, you can really get behind the character because everything that happens to him seems real, and it's because a lot of the experiences are real because it's been the shit we went through for the last 10 years. You know, we lost 2 kids, and then we finally had Roderick, and uh, we find out 3 months before he's born he's got to have open heart surgery. So you know, he's born, a week later he has open heart surgery, and then we're like, okay, you know, things are good. We come home for 2 weeks, then we go back Mother's Day, he's back in the hospital having surgery again, and then he has a cardiac cath at 11 months, and then my wife, they found precancerous cells, so she had to go in and have a hysterectomy, and you know, and before that Adriana was born, and she she had jaundice, and I mean, and then Roderick had another open heart surgery. So it's like there's been one thing after another. I used all my time off for being in the hospital for the last 5 years, and then this year or last year was because of me,
Yeah.
and so. And it's like, you know, it's just like, this has been a shit show, but it's like, I want to get this out there, and the story is awesome. And I used a lot of that experience, a lot of that emotion, a lot of that drive in the story to help make the characters be more realistic. I mean, it's like the scene in the book that I had on the preview on the Kickstarter. You know, you read the intro, uh, the prologue, and then the first 2 chapters. You know, where it ended, where in the scene where he says his goodbyes. You know, that was really emotional for me because it was like when I got this cancer diagnosis, I was like, you know, this is probably it, because I just, you know, every week I was declining more and more and more and more and more, and they didn't know what was wrong, and then the freaking doctor's office is shut down. So I'm like, you know, I'm gonna die at home because I can't even go to the doctor and find out if this is cancer or not. And so I poured that emotion into writing that scene of the book, and it's like, even reading that, it makes me tear up because it's like, you know, I can feel the emotion in it, and I don't know if it's like that for everybody else, but you know, I want to write something else and put it out there and give people a chance to, you know, check out my prose and get interested, and you know, them to say, hey, so and so, check this out, and then they like it, and then they tell their friends, and then try to help build the following a little bit for when the next launch happens, or when I just say, hey, guess what, I got these books here, who wants to buy one? And I think a lot of the problem with the first Kickstarter was I tried to roll in the art book. There was a lot. I tossed around the idea of doing an art book just so I could, you know, help advertise the artist and say, hey, you know, here's Wendy Steenshainer's piece. Here's Wendy Steenshiner. She does Naughty Fairies and yada, yada, yada. Here's CB Zane. He does Into the Suck and Scorpiana. And, you know, help advertise and bring more light onto the projects that they do and share that out, as well as giving people a larger format art book where they had each one of the pieces in the larger format. And so having the minimum print run of both of those drove my goal up. And so that was touching back on what Steph was talking about earlier about having the low goal early fund. My problem was, yeah, here it is, get goal low early funded projects. So my issue is if I set the goal low, it was going to end up being, you know, it would fund, and then I would have to come up with the rest for the print run. Because like, you do 20 books, it's $38 a book. You do 50 books, it's $30 a book. You do 100 books, it's like, I think $23 or $24 a book. And so like, if I say, oh, okay, we raised 500, you know, I would have to sell the books for like $50-$60 a piece. And it's like, but if I don't, and I sell them for $30 a piece and we fund, then I have to fork over the extra money. And with being in and out of the hospital and all that, it really wasn't something I could do. So I'm like, all right, this is the bare minimum. This is what I have to hit to be able to print both of these. So I think if we do run it again, if I do run it again on Kickstarter and decide not to just print it myself, I'll just drop the art book and do the minimum print run for a softcover book. We'll drop the hardcover. Instead of offering hardcover and softcover, we'll just do softcover. Here's the base print run of it. Go. And then just have stretch goals after that. And, you know, maybe if we hit a certain point, you know, if we hit 7,500, I'll upgrade it to hardback instead of softcover.
Well,
So,
see, this is, excuse me, this sets you apart from a lot of people, you know, because anybody who continues on with the dream despite all of the challenges and things like that, you know, it's a testament to what you're doing. It really separates the hobbyists from the people who are professionals who want to either make a career out of this or really take it seriously. And I mean, it's huge when you find people who take it seriously, take you seriously in the story and the challenges, and just say, you know what, despite all of this shit, I'm gonna make it happen. And that's the community that I want to surround myself with. You know, that's why I love uh, checking in on you. I love seeing what you're sharing on Facebook and your shows and stuff. The community that we're building together. That's how we rise together. And it's not even because um, it's not even like nepotism necessarily. It's just like, hey, you know what? There are crowd funds that I've supported not because I really wanted their book, but because I wanted to support them. It's like I love that passion, but that's how I support people. You know, if I'm not hitting the share button and stuff, and anybody who's got a crowd fund or any kind of project, you know, it's not that hard to hit the share button
No,
on it.
and
Even
it
if you
doesn't
can't
cost you
throw,
anything.
it doesn't cost you anything but a little bit of time and you know, maybe a sore mouse finger or something. But you know, that kind of advocacy for that kind of passion is, those are the people I want to be around. You know, the people who take the craft seriously, who understand how difficult it is to have, I mean, first of all, to put together a campaign, launch it, and then, you know, work your ass off to try and get it across the finish line. You know,
Yeah,
it's a testament. It's a testament to the hobbyists from the pros.
yeah, and that was really hard. You know, it was it was definitely a blow. You know, after everything that happened last year, for it to fail.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Yep.
not gonna lie and say, oh, I'm just gonna try again. I mean, I am gonna try again, and I mean that. But it doesn't mean it wasn't hard, and it didn't knock me down. And it's like, you know, after all the bullshit last year, even this didn't work out. But it's like, you know, it's fine. You know,
Yep.
it didn't work the last 10 years, and it ended up being more awesome than it was because it did the whole 90-page rewrite, wrote in a whole new universe and all new characters, and altered the entirety of the rest of the book. It got more emotion in it. The characters are more relatable. So I'm not going to say that something bad came out of there being a 10-year wait. It was like a fine wine. It got better with age.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I can knowingly say that I can put out a product that I'm 100% satisfied and that I'm proud of, to say, this is the final form. This is it right here. And so I'm going to do my damnedest to make it happen. And I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to give up. There's going to be roadblocks. And that was part of why I started doing the live shows last year. You know, I brought on the artists that did pieces for the book because I'm like, you know, hey, I want to promote you and show off the piece that you did for the book, and,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and help get your name out there. Let's do a show. Well, then I started getting messages. Hey, when can I be on your show? I'm like, well, it's not really a show. I'm just having my artist on that did pieces for the book. I'm like, but yeah, we can do something. And then it went from one day a week to twice a week. And now I've been doing it almost a year and 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to stop doing it because I enjoy it. I enjoy getting to talk to people. I enjoy getting to know the person behind the book, not just, hey, I'm selling a book. You know, it's all
Exactly.
about, you know, it's all about inspiration. What inspired you to do this? You know, like you said, this was your escape from bullying
Mm-hmm.
and all the bad things that happened in your life. And I wanted to be a light for people, not only through being able to promote other artists, but through showing, look, I have had a shit year and I'm fighting through, so can you. Everybody had a terrible year last year, and I wanted to be that light for everybody can say, oh, you know, nobody can have the excuse, well, my life sucks because 2020 I'm stuck at home, you know.
Yep.
I'm out here, you know, pushing, trying to get my dream project out there. I'm still working, despite the fact of, you know, having a heart hit at home that knowing that I'm scared to death if I bring this shit home to them, something's going to happen to them. But I got to keep the lights on. And even with the stuff going on with me, I was still working. And I wasn't doing it to be like a Debbie Downer or to be negative or to get on there and be like, oh, feel sorry for me and buy my book. It was, no matter what goes on in your life, do it. Just don't make excuses for it. Just do it. Get out there and do the one thing that you've always wanted to do, because you don't know that you're going to have tomorrow to do it.
Exactly.
And do you want to regret it? Because I know I regret not publishing this book. And if it's the last thing I do, I'm going to take my dying breath knowing that I did it. I put it out there. And, me launching the project was me hitting that milestone. I took something that I did 10 years ago that I thought was never going to happen because of all the shit that happened in our life. But I've done it now. And I'm only going to keep pushing it from here.
I love that. I love that.
That stimulus chicken wheel.
It's I don't want to have any regrets. I only have one, and I put a lot of thought into that. It's just that one regret is something where I'll have to make it right when I see her one day, but everything else, I've come to either own what my responsibility was in whatever it might have been. But as for pursuing the dream, like you were saying, these things that we're doing right now, they are all stepping stones to something else, to the next thing. And if you find, to anybody who's listening, if you find that you are expending energy for something that isn't moving you forward, then maybe consider why you're doing that, and pivot to something that will propel you further along. Meredith, one regret is she wasn't strong enough to kill her husband when he was poking her. You know what? I love that man with all my heart, but he is an Irishman and he's got a head like granite. So yeah, if I'm gonna kill him, it can't be a blow to the head.
Well, just know if you go target shooting with T-post, it's a possibility that it might. Right, hon?
That had to be a shot in a million for that to ricochet back.
Yeah, it was just so funny because she's like, "You shot me," and I'm like, "What?" She's like, "You shot me," and I turn around, there's like blood trickling down her chin.
Oh,
I'm like,
man,
how did that hapen? Oh,
I
man,
did that
funny.
once with a BB gun. I can't even imagine like an actual shotgun.
Well, at least it was the ricochet, so it didn't have so much power. It kind of hit her and bounced off. So it was like kind of like if you got hit with a rock from a lawnmower from far away.
That sucks.
Man.
But that's a story. It's like I shot my wife in the face with a shotgun. What?
Yeah. Yeah, it was so funny. Her mom, why are you laughing? That's not funny, Tiffany. And she's just laughing hysterically, almost to the point that she can't even breathe. Oh, man, that's too much.
Crazy.
But yeah, I'm not going to give up. It's going to happen. I'm going to keep pushing it. I'm still talking about it. And everybody's going to know before too long. There's some other stuff that's going on in the background. Is good that came from kickstarting the project, some things that I had involved in the project that are going to be progressing to another stage. And there's a few people, a couple of them are in the audience that know what I'm talking about. It will be revealed soon enough, but I'm really excited about it. More excited than I am about my book.
Stepping stones.
So
prose is hard. Prose is really hard, especially for crowdfunding. True, it's a true story. Because again, with Kickstarters going in there and looking for other people to support, I find myself migrating more towards the comics or tech or something that is not prose, and I'm like, why? I really have to go in and think about that. Why? My hook is basically, again, to merge the prose with the comic books and show progress towards that one direction. But if it was a standalone, who knows where I would be? It could be, back again like the first one where I had 6 backers, and going, why is this failing? Because prose is freaking hard. It's like, wow. I wouldn't even know what to do if I didn't have that comic book connection. I'd probably just go straight to Amazon at that point.
Yeah.
God's honest truth.
Well, and that's the thing, I don't know. I've had other authors, contact me like, well, why don't you just publish it on Amazon, and Amazon will print it and send it for you? And it's like, yeah, I could do that, but then I just have money coming in because people are just randomly buying my book, And I know you said earlier that people are in it to make money, and if they say they're not, they're lying. But it's like, I honestly could care less about the money aspect. It's about the connections for me. I can't wait for somebody to buy my book and read it and then see me at a con and walk up to me and be like, I hated your book, and this is why. I loved your book. This is why.
Mm-hmm.
I loved your book, but you could work on this. I wanted to have those conversations, or I want to hear those questions about, well, this happened, but like, what caused this to happen? And be like, I can either be, oh, well, this is what happened, or I could be like, well, I left it up to your imagination. What do you think happened? Right. And I'm in it for the connection. I want to, somebody to be able to go to my website or send me a message on Facebook and say, hey, I heard such and such talk about your book. I'd like to get a copy. And to be like, okay, would you like it signed? Do you want a note in it? Do you just want a plain copy of the book? I want to handle it with love and put it in a box and send it knowing that it was sent and packaged correctly and it got to their house in 100% condition. I want it to have that personal touch to it. I don't want it just to be another Amazon package that comes in the mail or you know what I mean? And I know it's going to sound really stupid to some people, but I don't care. I that's just me. That's how I am.
You need the community to help promote your book, because you can have the best thing out there, and if nobody knows it, then it's not going to be on their radar. Yeah. For me with this book, it's quite honestly, I'll be very frank, it is a means to a way. The Compendium of Dread was originally supposed to be a collection of stories from a whole bunch of authors, from friends who may not have had anything published to other friends who did have things that were published. And, I went through that doubt. It's like, okay, well, are they ghosting me because they think this project is shit? Or, maybe they think their story is too good to be included in this. I had all of those doubts and stuff. And I realized, you know what? I can't want it more than them. I'm hoping, because it does say volume 1 on it, that volume 2 is that stepping stone towards the dream of having more creators send in their stories, because I like the idea of having these smaller stories scripted out and becoming comic books. And I mean, if that's something that appeals to people who maybe are not prose writers, but would like to see something maybe that they created into comic book form and have the best of both worlds, I mean, why not do it? It sounds crazy, but why the hell not? And that's, so for me, again, it's that means of a way where I didn't have to kickstart this. I could have gone straight to Amazon and then just kind of done the junket and gotten on shows and talked about the book and yada, yada, yada. But that connection, in order for it's another way, it's another road to communicate. So I'm sitting here with you and I'm talking to your audience, and people who are in on the replay who goes, who's this Meredith person? Oh, let me see what her project's about.
Oh my gosh, she tried to kill her husband. No,
yeah, it's just like she's that crazy bitch. Her stories have got to be good,
That crazy bitch, the comic noob.
Right? I mean, but again, for me, it's that stepping stone. I love community. I love online communities. I consider myself kind of an engagement specialist when it comes to things like that. Been doing it for a long time. I'll hop on pretty much any kind of beta site in order to test it and see where the community's at.
And if one thing that all people need to understand is authors aren't just creative and like to write; they like to talk too.
Yeah. Could you tell?
Yeah. No, everybody can tell with
no,
me.
on the flip side of that, Russ, I mean, honestly, I've tried interviewing authors too. Some of them are just like, they'll sit there and go, you ask them a question, they'll be like, yes.
Oh no, not me.
Oh shit.
Yeah, no, not me.
It's like on to my next question. Oh my gosh, I didn't write any.
Like Brian K. Morris had me on Clever Title Pending, and Brian's like, well, I think we can make an hour's worth of show, and I was like, apparently you've never seen me on a show before. Like I can make an hour show go like 6 hours. Like we'll be bullshitting and derail the show completely, and then come back to the question 45 minutes later.
Right.
And after we took this
you have a memory like that. See, I don't. I'm just like, what were we talking about? I don't remember.
Yeah, and it's funny. It blows everybody's mind because like I'll totally derail on these shows, and then like we'll go on for like 25 minutes and just right back. I'm like, all right. So anyway, back to what we were talking about 25 minutes ago. So this is why I did that, and this is what led up to that, and all this crazy shit happened, and this, and yeah, and that's what it's all about, you know. And that's what I like about this show is I like being able to bullshit and tell stories and unwind because, you know, it's not just about, hey, Meredith's got a Kickstarter project, go back it. You know, people want to know who you are, what you're into, what got you into there. You know, did you like comics as a kid? Who was your favorite character? Who were some of your inspirations in writing? And, you know, get to know the person behind the book. Because, I mean, to be honest, everybody's getting off of work or they've been bored at home all day and they're like, I just want to get on and unwind and let loose. And the last thing they want to hear is, hello, my name is Russell. I have a book called Xeno Nanite Titan. Yeah. It's about robot. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for putting me to sleep. I'm going to watch this show every night. I won't have to take NyQuil anymore.
Right. It's the cure for insomnia.
So, yeah. And that's how we are, you know, in the hey guys, back after taking a nap. You must have been watching Chuck's show. No, I'm just kidding. So yeah, and that's what's so fun. I mean, we derail the audience. I mean, I put everybody's comments up there, no matter how crazy they are, unless you're a Twitch streamer. Fuck you.
Well, yeah. We were talking about cars earlier, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
How crazy is that?
Oh yeah, the only meltdown I've had in almost a year now of live streaming was Roderick was sick a couple weeks ago. He was running a temperature, and so we're like, oh no, you know, because like, you know, we know quarantine's our norm since Roderick's been born. Flu and RSV season, we open heart surgeries. We have to be on quarantine 2 weeks before and 4 weeks after. Because if he gets any kind of infection, it could go into his heart and kill him. So the year they had open heart surgery, we didn't have Thanksgiving, we didn't have Christmas because it was the week after Christmas or Thanksgiving. So this is our norm. We're used to it. You know, they're like, oh, quarantine, what's that? You know, it's just this is a 9-month one. You know, going on, and so. You know, we're like, you know, great. He's got a fever. Oh my God. You know, what if he has COVID? Well, so Roderick came in here and Tiffany couldn't find the thermometer. So I was like, just run to Dollar General or Walgreens. They're both still open and go get another thermometer. And so she went to send him back to his room. And I was like, don't send him to his room. He's not feeling good. Tell him to come in here. I pulled a chair next to me and sat with him. I turned the camera down so everybody could see him and he could say hi to everybody. And it was during my Blue Balls review show. And, you know, and so, you know, I was like, all right, guys, we're going to switch gears. You know, my son's not feeling good. He's up. So, you know, I'm sorry. We're going to have to stop with the review and be serious for a little bit. And then like these Twitch streamers just started talking shit about my son. And I fucking lost it. I'm like, look, I don't care what you guys say about me on the show, but you do not talk about any kid, much less my son that's sitting here. Because what if he was old enough to read this? All these comments that you guys are commenting, scroll right here on the side of the screen. From whatever channel, they come up right here. If he could read that, imagine if he could, how that would make him feel. And I just was like, I was like, "Ugh."
Yeah.
So yeah, I was like, I
Oh.
deleted Twitch. I haven't streamed to Twitch since then.
Hmm.
But so
Yeah, Twitch is a dumpster fire
it is.
unless you're a gamer.
Yeah, unless
I
you're a
mean,
gamer,
it's really for game.
it's just
I
trolls.
still have my account there, and I don't even know why. My audience is definitely not there.
Meredith, look at her desk. Things are there for a reason.
I've got all kinds of stuff behind me.
So I have to know. If Blue Balls gets a reaction, we need to do a reaction to Blue Balls review mention of guests. LOL. Yeah. So in case you don't know, there's a funny story behind it. When Wendy Steenshaner and Christina Haggerty were on the show, we were talking like it was off the chain. Like it was freaking insane. We had a ton of people on. The comments were crazy. The stories were crazy. So I told the story about how we did this pyrotechnic show for a college graduation. One of the boxes blew apart and the tubes laid out, and it launched the mortars out into a field with cows in it.
Oh no!
And so, and they were those blue peonies, is what they call them. It's just the blue star things that explode. Everybody, they're like, peony. What's that? It's just the blue flowers that explode in the sky. And so, these blue exploding blue balls in the field, and the cows are running for their lives. No cows got hurt. And so, that's all everybody talked about for like the next few weeks. Like Danny proliferated into Rodney Fike's show and Sean Forney's show. And like everybody's like, what's all this shit about blue balls? So then I had to explain the story. And so Heather with Comics and More Chaos was talking to me. She's like, yeah, I think such and such is going to start doing reviews for me. And I'm like, why didn't you ask me? I'm like, you know, I would do it. If you have somebody's book that they're wanting to send out for people to read and give a review on, send it my way. I got plenty of books here that I can go through and read and do reviews on. I'll start doing a review show. We'll call it Blue Balls Reviews. My host name will be Harry Sachs. And so it's funny. And I like to joke around and have fun. You know, I like to be serious about stuff because I am serious about it. But I like to have a good time because, you know, it's stupid to be serious all the time. And so it's a funny show. It's a fun show. And we have a blast. I wear a big fucking afro. And so, yeah, that's the story behind Blue Balls Reviews.
That's awesome.
Trish Meredith tried to kill her husband. He laughed his ass off about that, Russell. Dick Cheney, his wife, amongst a few other things, but they weren't as funny. Grandparents bought a new toilet, and my friend just got home to help me move it. We have shunned Jack because he hasn't backed up.
Oh, are we
James,
turning our back?
James, you can say shunned. I say shamed, but hey, you know.
So funny.
Whoa, what happened here? I got all tangled up. So yeah, I mean, these shows are fun. And it's nice to get to talk to people. Back to what we were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I was making sure I didn't miss any because we had a bunch of comments dump in. You know how StreamYard's been lately.
Yeah, I know. It's been a pain in the ass.
So back to this. So this was brought up earlier. What are we supposed? What is going to make me blush that's on your desk? I'm really interested to know this because good luck.
Oh well. If you want to change the screen to where we're widescreen, I'll point to it. So for whatever reason, Trish just loves this little item here. And there's only one person who asked me about it. And that was Rob Anderson. And he goes, Meredith, what the hell is that on your desk? He's like, that looks strangely like a dildo. And I was like, why, Rob? As a matter of fact, it is. I
love how on the one side it looks like a cactus.
Yes. So I've been putting that behind me because I do reviews and things like that. Why, yes, I did a review for that.
Hey, you never know. When you're gonna have to stimulate the show. I mean, what can I say?
And I scare my husband with that too because it is actually that bright pink, and I tell my husband, anytime I ask him if he wants to do research with me, he looks really frightened because it could be something that I tie him up in a good way or maybe a bad way, or maybe I'm trying to kill him or, whatever the case might be. But when I pulled that out and I had it charged and it was like, and he was like, what the hell are you doing?
Get yours out. We're going to have a lightsaber battle.
I'm like, you want to play? And he's like, put that away. What's wrong with you? And he turned bright pink. He's so cute.
That's not going to get to me at all. I think it's hilarious. And then, like, when you picked it up and it said G-Joy, I mean, that should have been a dead giveaway right there.
Right.
I love how
only one person picked up on that, or everybody noticed and they just didn't mention it. But I happened to talk about it on a Freaky Friday, so that was fun.
So you want to hear a really funny story? So going back at that, so we were over at my dad's, and his girlfriend had her toys in the closet, and her grandkids were in their bedroom playing, and nobody could figure out what this fucking noise was. There was like this. It sounded like something was coming through the wall.
It's a Hemi.
Yeah, and it sounded like something was gonna come through the wall. And so his girlfriend went in there and come out, and she was like 50 Shades of Red. I mean, she was like, and my dad was like, "What?" And she was like, "The kids got into the toys in the closet and turned them on."
That's not a flashlight.
Hey, look, Mom, we're playing lightsabers. We need to send her one with blue balls to do a bottom outs review of it.
And yes, I do have a copy of Yi Sun Shin, and I'm an idiot because I got the second book before I got the first book. So now I'm waiting to get the first book so I can read them in order because the art is absolutely stunning. And I've got Ava behind me. I've got Daphne Lage's sketchbook. So I mean, there's like I've got so much stuff behind me, and you can see some of the boxes of unopened packages and crowd funds that I keep telling myself I'm gonna do an online, a live stream package reveal. Man, at this point they're like so old. I think some of the creators have already launched another book. I'm like, oh, man, I feel like shit.
Jack said I had an uncle who used to work at a sex shop, and he talks about every Friday all the vibrators would be turned on and vibrate the store.
It's not an earthquake, but don't you wish it could be?
Yeah. The jackhammer, the Richter scale, 10.0. Meredith, do you need the first one? I've got 3 hardcovers. LOL.
Do you? Yeah, I have to get with Henri and order the first book. So yeah, because I have to read it in order, and I love having all the copies if possible, so that I can binge read or binge watch, whatever the case might be. Yeast and shit. No, wrong, Danny, wrong. I told my adult kids that they shouldn't go through my bedside dresser because it is filled with Trish's sex toys. Now, it could be true. Well, what is sure is no child touches that dresser. This went sideways really fast.
Yeah, it did go sideways really fast. So to reel it back,
so if I ever kickstart like an erotica, I will definitely let you guys know. Maybe a stretch goal will be a friggin' vibrator. Who knows? Why not?
Oh yeah. The crowd on my end. Oh yeah. I mean, you start talking about BDSM, and we're going to be up to like 76 people before too long.
It's like handcuffs. Yes, thank you.
Yeah. I mean, now granted, we did have author Michaela Jade on, and she was promoting her $50 panty and book special, and we were talking about how Brian K. Morris was going to repeat visitor line for signatures.
Oh,
geez. So going back and reeling it back in.
Okay.
Who were some of your inspirations for writing? Like, did you have a favorite author or favorite poet that you liked to read when you were growing up?
When with romance, it was Maggie Shane. with horror was obviously Stephen King because he's like the king, literally. But I like Robert R. McKinnon. Oh my gosh, am I saying it? McCammon, with his kind of crime thrillers and stuff like that. So, I mean, one, there isn't any one author or one book that really inspired me necessarily. It was just the idea of picking up a book and being transported into a different world. So, I mean, I love reading fantasy, but I'm shit at writing it, you know? Um,
Yeah, see, that's my forte. I love reading fantasy and science fiction like that.
yeah.
I just absolutely love
It
it.
just it boggles my mind. Like with science fiction, as much as I love reading it, um, for me to try and write something like that and do it well, in my opinion, takes a certain amount of research in an area that I would rather read about and not try and write about and sound, at all intelligent. Because, like I said earlier, with things like Star Trek, Buck Rogers, all of those sci-fi movies and shows that came out when
Yeah,
we
like
were
Knight
growing up.
Rider, where the car can
Yeah,
drive itself, and now
exactly.
cars
It was
really do
like
drive themselves.
I don't want to, like, my stories aren't really meant to entice the inventive spirit at all, not at all. It's just pure enjoyment, yeah, and fun. Whereas, I mean, if any of my books were to inspire something that were to happen in the future, I don't want to try and predict the future and create those worlds necessarily. If I did, it would probably be more dystopian, where it was all destroyed anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So as much as I love reading that kind of stuff, I think it would be horseshit trying to write it.
Welcome to my sci-fi story, where there's a horrific serial killer and everybody dies and all the planets are destroyed.
I'm all for that. I'm like, kill everyone. you know?
Welcome to Meredith Loughran's 6th book, Ghost Planet.
Everybody's dead. That was easy.
That was easy.
No sequel.
Everybody's dead. I don't think men watch porn the same way women do. Yeah, when there's a devil's three-way, they just look at her and go, "Is that chick on a rotisserie?" No.
Right.
No. Oh, Jesus. No, they'd be railed
I don't know
again.
what other inspirations. I mean, basically life. When I write the dark fiction, a lot of it is the stuff that happens in the news that you kind of twist it or interpret it some way, or try to find the backstory, like how did it get to that point, and write the story that leads up to that event.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is that. Sometimes it's just dialogue in my head. The one time I woke up, it was in the middle of the night, and it was because there was this one set of dialogue between two characters, and they kept on talking to each other, and then it would hit a wall and it would hit repeat. So it was like that broken record, and it played over and over and over again. And I'm tossing and turning, I'm trying to sleep, and the voices are talking, and I'm like, all right, I'm up. And I woke up and I started writing that bit of dialogue to just purge it from my head. And before I knew it, it was 6 o'clock in the morning. The sun was coming up, and I had about 3,000 words easily. And I love when that happens, but I also hate when that happens, because it's like,
I value my sleep.
I value my sleep as much as I value food. Okay. So it was one of those things, but at the same time, when those voices are talking, the words just pour out, and it's so smooth. And I'm like, okay, I can work with this. You're getting that clay that you can mold and shape into something, and where's it going to take you? And a lot of times, uh, because I have a lot of projects that I'm working on, usually at the same time, I go, I don't have time for you yet. Just shush, shush your mouth. Okay. I will get to you when I get to you. I wrote this down so I don't forget. And that speaks to the notebook again. I have to have a notebook with those notes, otherwise they're gone. And then the voices get really pissed off. Yeah. It is what
It
it is.
happens. It is what it is. That is such a serious problem, though. I can totally attest to that. That you sit down and you start writing, get really into it, and you look over and you're like, oh crap, it's 1 o'clock in the morning. I got to be up at 3 o'clock for work.
Yeah.
Or it's like
I didn't need
Saturday
sleep.
night, and you're like, oh, it's 8:30. I think I'll write a little bit, and you look over and it's 3:15 in the morning. And you're like,
Yeah, gone are
and
the
then,
days. I used to be able to do that when I was younger, but now it hurts. It takes
yeah.
like 3 days to recover.
Oh, trust me, I understand that. I had several of those days last year where I'd be like it was like 3:50 in the morning. I'm like, holy crap, I wrote 2.5 chapters. And then I get up in the morning and I'd be like, did I really write that much last night?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, I did. I'm on chapter 7. Like, wow.
See,
I
and
pulled all that out of my ass.
Danny needs to take that idea and run with it.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
You didn't want to read that out loud?
Yeah, Meredith Space Odyssey. Everyone fucks and spreads the zombie virus, and everyone dies by the time the craft crash lands. Then the receiving planet gets infected because someone there fucked a corpse. Thank me later.
Hey, there's a kink for everybody, right?
Yeah. It wouldn't be the first time a planet's went out with a bang, so
Right, there you go.
Jack Saga's just ghost ship without an ocean and in space. Yeah. I feel like I missed something while I was gone. Yeah, Nita. You don't want to know.
We
You
went,
missed a
yeah,
lot.
we went sideways a little bit.
We went like here was where we were supposed to go, and this is how we went.
I think we're still climbing out of the gutter.
Yeah, I don't know. We're jumping in with both feet.
Hope you brought a snorkel.
Yeah, no joke. So one last final question I have for you is, after the Compendium of Dread, what kind of things are you thinking about working on next? I mean, do you have a book lined up that you want to get done, or are you gonna continue working on comic books?
Yes. I am. So this year, I'm really going to be dedicated to creating more books. I do want to see if Compendium takes off, where there are going to be other writers who want to participate in Volume 2, and see, because the plan is to make sure that happens regardless. I would like to bring other people in on the journey. Then one of the main focuses, yeah, definitely. One of the main focuses that I will have is to make sure that Terraform Comics launches with Continuum. We've got plans for other books, and just keeping up with the content and striving for excellence when it comes to the creative process and putting the best books that are out there. And I know, like, that's really subjective for a lot of people. Like, oh, what's quality? Quality is so subjective. But for me, a lot of times, even before Terraform, when it came to organizing challenges or trying to get a community together to work on something, or even teaching people something like the best practices of blogging or vlogging or whatever the case might be. When it comes to quality, in my perspective, it is having the technical aspect of it understood and practiced and doing it well. The content itself, whatever it is that you're writing, is kind of like the icing on the cake, but you need to make the cake first.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So, as an example, let's just say blogging as an example. You want to have a good title. You want to have a good featured image. You want to have the text that makes sense. So your story arc. You want to have things that are broken up so that it's easy on the eyes. So when having headers and things like that. And how does that translate into comic books? Or how does that translate into prose? It's the same thing with comic books. You have those covers, you have variant covers, you have things that grab people's attention.
Yep.
You want to have a good title. Does the image that is there, does that really reflect what's inside the book? So all of those things, formatting, sequential art, does it flow? All of those things, they kind of tie in hand. So, I'm taking a lot of my experience as a prose writer and also my experience in newspapers because I understand layout. But when I worked in newspapers, it was about moving boxes around. For layout here it's helped me a lot as far as scripting out something and understanding page 2 goes into 3 and 3 needs a reason to turn the page, so where is your content and how does it flow?
How's it laid out? Yep.
Exactly. So as a writer, that you have to take that into consideration before you can send it to an artist. So those are all things where I was kind of on the learning curve, but it was like, oh, well, that applies to comics too. And I'm not saying that it was easier for me. I'm still on a learning curve. And I'm going to tell you, Russ, I never want to be the smartest person in the room, ever.
No.
Ever. Because if I feel like I'm the smartest person in the room,
You're not
I
growing.
need to find another. Yeah, and I need to find another room.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing. You never want to you don't ever want to feel like you're the smartest person in the room because you have nowhere to grow. So, like you said, if you feel like you're the smartest person in the room, then obviously either the group that you're with is not being useful, and they're just like, "Hey, we're happy with where we're at,"
Mm-hmm.
or you need to move somewhere else to help set your bar higher.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, and that's the thing. If I ever got to a point where I was comfortable all the time, then I'm probably one of those people who just feels like, okay, I'm just going to take my arm off so I can pat my own back and look at all the people who admire me and adore me and all that stuff. It's like, no, I want to learn. And while I'm learning, if there's somebody who's coming up through the ranks and says, hey, I like what she's doing and they're learning by example, I don't mind being an example, and I don't mind screwing up and making mistakes and things like that, because if that's part of the learning process. So I own those mistakes. If I did it, I own it, and I do take responsibility, but I won't take responsibility for anybody else's fuck ups.
No.
I mean, that why? But I own my own, and that's helped me grow as a person, as a creative person. And again, I one of the pieces of advice is stay uncomfortable. As much as that sucks, stay uncomfortable. What is Danny D saying?
He said, I have that problem. That's why I hand out in the chat and comments. I was pissed when they canned Yahoo comments.
And Jack says, if you're the smartest person in the room, then everybody else
Everybody
is an idiot.
and that's
not fun. True.
Yeah.
Very true.
And then Jack also said, Meredith, how adventurous have you made your husband?
My husband. It's really fun to make him blush. He's like, who are you? And why am I frightened? But I've known him since I was 15, so that's been a long ass time. And James Sims, you got to get going. Yeah, so before I go check out Omni. We added a new pledge level. Very cool. Now, do you have the add-ons on your Kickstarter? Because I missed the beta, so I don't think I qualified, and I didn't see an option for me to do add-ons. So
I
I had to
had
kind of do
add-ons
it.
on mine.
Do you? I think I have to do it the old way.
Yeah, I don't. You should still be able to do them because Wendy just did hers and launched it on the 1st, and hers has add-ons.
Does she?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yeah, Naughty
look.
Fairies Con 2.0's got add-ons on it. I'm pretty sure they still
Hmm.
have the option. I mean, you have to send them an essay on why you think that they should allow you to use it. But I made mine so long they were just like, "Fucking give it to
It's
them."
like, yeah, give it to him so he can shut up.
Oh, he said I miss beta too. I have to do it the old way. So I guess if you've already done it before, you can still
Oh,
do it because Wendy had it on the last project, and I think the project before it.
okay. All right.
So
Yeah,
that
because
makes sense.
I don't think that I have the add-ons. I was looking for it.
I'll have to log in and see if it'll let me do it if I do another one
Uh-huh.
later and try it out. I was maybe that's how it works. Maybe if you got in on the beta, you can still do it since you already granted access.
Yeah. And
I don't know.
I'm taking a look at Omni right now. You're at 1528, 58 backers. That's awesome with 22 days to go.
Yep. I don't know why they didn't just roll it out. They should have just left it and tweaked it and made it available for everybody. I don't know why they haven't had it to begin with, to be honest.
Well,
Eh,
somebody was saying that that's an idea that they probably borrowed from Indiegogo. And somebody earlier did ask about like Kickstarter and Indiegogo, like if there was a difference and stuff. I don't know. Have you found that you support what creators on one platform as opposed to the other?
I don't like Indiegogo.
Hmm.
I don't know. I don't feel it to be as personal. I don't know. And then again, people will be like, "Well, that's a stupid reason not to like it." But I don't know. I just for some reason I like Kickstarter more. I feel like the people on Kickstarter project wise are more engaged than people on Indiegogo. Like
Mm,
Indiegogo is like going on to an online website, like where it's just like, "Here, sign up for our newsletter and get 15% off," and
right.
that's like the most engagement you get out of going to Indiegogo. But you go on to Kickstarter and you can be like read about all the updates and the cool stuff that the creators have been talking about, and
I
I don't
like the
know.
notifications. I like
Yeah,
seeing what other people are supporting so that because I references or referrals, those are like top of the line for me. That,
well,
you
and
know,
that's the other
if I
thing
see a
too.
friend of mine supporting something, I'm curious, then I go look.
Yeah, exactly, Jack. There are differences between Indiegogo and Kickstarter. Kickstarter because it gives you more of a connection to everyone around the community plus the creator, and that's the other thing that I was going to say. You back my project, and it'll bring up one of Wendy's projects or one of Steph's
Right.
projects and say you may also like this. Indiegogo is
Hmm.
just like, oh, thanks for giving us money, peace.
I think with Indiegogo, the one thing that I liked about it was I like the fact that I that it charges up front. So and that you can set it to a flexible or a strict goal, and so it kind of gives you that flexibility. Um, I think that's pretty much the only thing I like about that. And quite honestly, I know a lot of people who start on Kickstarter and then bring the project over to Indiegogo to reach a different audience because it's a completely different
Yeah.
audience.
Well,
But
I mean,
at the
doing an
same time,
after
is
campaign.
mine right? Exactly. But is my audience there? I don't know that it is.
Well, and here's the thing. So, Danny D, I get that you can run them as long as you want and keep them open like a store, but you also have to take into account for the fact that you get on there and they have one that once it reaches its goal, it stays on there and that people can keep backing it. That they're
Hmm.
not going to order those books until the money stops coming in because they're going to do whatever print run they need to do out of that end chunk of money. So I don't feel that it's fair to you if you back it on day one and the money gets taken out and it funds and then it stays on there for 3 months before they close it out and then they order the books and then it's another 6 months before you get your book after everything comes in.
Yeah.
I mean, because I don't see creators being like, okay, we need to reach $1,000 and then we'll leave the after campaign up and then ordering the first people that back the book. And then once everybody else backs, ordering another order, they're going to order that stuff all at once. That's just my take on it anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was going to say, I can't think of any, excuse me, I can't think of anything else that I really like Indiegogo for.
Yeah, I mean,
But
I understand.
I do like the secret tiers though. That's
Yeah.
another thing that I like, where
You can make a
you
secret
can do
link where only certain people can
exactly,
access it.
exactly. And so if you wanted to have something special for, for example, like I did a couple readings during the 101 Tales um, event that was online, and I wanted to make them an exclusive offer. I would love to do that on Kickstarter, but I can't because they don't offer that, but they do on Indiegogo, and I'm like, that would be a really cool tool to
Or
have
like
because it
how,
would be exclusive just to them. Here's your
yep.
special tier. I don't have to jump through hoops. Um, you know, because as well as I do, putting together a campaign, it takes enough work as it is trying to get your graphics together, your information, your video if you have one, and all that stuff. I mean, that takes a lot of work and effort. And then to add those things, like for example, like I don't have the add-ons, so it's like, okay, I have to go in and adjust my description and all that, and add those in, and hope that my math at the end of the campaign is right. It's like I don't know, it just, those are the extra steps that I would like simplified. But um Kickstarter is where the audience seems to be for me.
Yeah, and Danny, everybody's got their preference. I mean, we could sit here and we could argue the differences between the two all day. It's
Hmm.
just pretty much personal preference, Danny. I mean, if you like Indiegogo and it works well for you or it works well for other people, then I mean, I'd say all the more power to them. I have no problem with people doing stuff on Indiegogo. I mean, even if I am leaving money on the table, it doesn't matter to me. I just really don't care for the platform.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's not about money for me. It's about the personal the personableness of Kickstarter. That's what I like, and I just
Hmm.
never have felt that from Indiegogo. And I mean, if they change the way that it operates later on, I would have no problem running a campaign. But I know people run after campaigns on Indiegogo. I just can't say that I really have the time to put all of that kind of work into it. And then, I mean, the other thing is then I don't feel that to be fair to the Kickstarter people either, because you're leaving them on the chain for however long you run your Indiegogo before you take all the money combined from both, and then you got to
Hmm.
fulfill both, and that just sounds like a whole freaking headache to me. That's why
Yeah.
you use Backer Kit on Kickstarter. Did you miss out on this, or do you want to add more stuff onto it? Here's your last chance.
Hmm. Yeah. And again, I think it speaks to just preference. I think both are really great platforms. Where's your preference? Where's your audience? It's kind of the same thing with social media. There are some people who have their audience is Instagram, you know, and they only visit Facebook to just see whose birthday it is, and then there are other people who live and breathe Facebook and
Hate
everything
Instagram.
else, or hate Twitter or whatever,
Yeah.
um, and where your audience, I haven't really met too many people who have a huge audience on all of the platforms.
Yeah.
It's usually the main focus is on one, and then maybe they have the other ones just to say, I have a Twitter and I have an Instagram and all that stuff. And you put your attention to the one where your audience is and where they are engaged, because I mean, it's one thing to put up pretty pictures on Instagram, but if you don't have an audience and nobody's liking your content or sharing it, then it's like, what are you spending your energy on exactly?
Well, and that's a lot of what I base off of what I'm saying too, as far as, why do I choose Kickstarter over Indiegogo, is the feedback I hear from the other creators who
Mhm.
are using the platform for the same thing that I am. You
Yeah.
know, I hear where oh, I ran such and such on Kickstarter, and I ran such and such on Indiegogo, and then I ran this on both, and out of all of the things that I've run, Kickstarter's always had the bigger audience for this specific type of project.
Mhm.
And so it's all based around what kind of project you're doing too, like you said. So and
Sure.
it's about seeing where is my audience focused mainly at. And I feel that Kickstarter's where a lot of my fan base slash audience is located right now. And like I said before too, with Kickstarter, you have more of a chance of it popping up when somebody backs something and saying, "Here's something else you may like." Where
Mhm.
Indiegogo doesn't do that. It's just like, "Okay, thank you," and you don't get that. Here's another recommended project. And
Right.
so I feel like Kickstarter gives you more of an advantage on the crowdfunding side because they will throw projects into your face and say, "Well, hey, you like this? Here's a project like that,"
Mhm.
and I
And
really like that.
and on the other side of that too is I do support people who use Kickstarter and Indiegogo, and I've followed them from one platform to the other,
Yep.
depending on what the different perks might be or the different levels. So I've supported on both
Yeah, I
on
have no problem
occasion. But if
supporting both.
there's a creator who I like, I don't think it really matters what platform
No,
they're
you'll
on.
follow them wherever they go.
I will follow them.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm a creepy stalker, but I won't go peeking in their windows. That's the
No, that's
theory,
Louis Torres' job.
right? Yeah, and I don't. Speaking of social media, it's like you follow me everywhere. I'm like, it's okay to be a little bit creepy. I'm creepy myself. Just don't peek in my windows. That's all I ask.
Well, it's been a great show. I think we better wrap it up. It's going on
Holy
three.
crap! We've been talking for over 3 hours.
Yeah, we better wrap it
Wow.
up. I got to get my old body back to bed and get up and go do another thing of work. I'm like, oh wow, it's 11:15.
Yeah,
Time flies when you're having fun, right?
I'm working on a soul sucker right now. It's one of those articles where you're never going to have your name on it, and it's just crap, but it pays the bills.
Yep.
That's yeah. I've got to finish up the soul sucker.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for being on here tonight, Meredith. It was
I
great
appreciate it,
talking to
Russ.
you. It was a lot of fun. We definitely derailed and covered a lot of ground. So I will give you the full screen for the last bit to give everybody where they can find you and
Okay,
give one last rundown on your project.
excellent. All right, you guys. So I am Meredith Loughran. I am the associate editor over at Geek Insider, as well as the executive producer of the Geek Insider podcast. I've got a Kickstarter happening right now. Russ has been great. He's been sharing out my link, but you can check it out on bit.ly, so bit.ly/compendium KS, and that is a short link that'll get you there. You can also follow me on Linktree /MEREJ99, like I have over here by my name. And, follow me all over the place. Make sure that you hit the subscribe button and, check out the updates because I've included some people who are launching. I've got Daphne Lage's Ego Raven. I've got Omni up there. And there are a few other things. Because Billy Tucci needs the love, right? But he's got such a great product. But yeah, definitely check out my Kickstarter. It is the Compendium of Dread, an anthology of dark fiction, volume 1. It is a collection of short stories and flash fiction and some microfiction that I've compiled over a couple of years, edited, expanded on some stories, and put together. It's not all horror. There's some crime, there's paranormal, and if you love serial killers and things with a twisty end, this might be right up your alley. The goal behind this Kickstarter, oh, I like that. Ooh, give me chills. But the goal behind this is to launch the book. It will eventually be up on Amazon once once I'm done with the Kickstarter. The Kickstarter, it's not an exclusive, but it will be a Kickstarter edition because it's going to have the thank you page. It's going to have the roughs of the 8 pages of The Dying, which is the first book that is being scripted out and made into a comic book, which you will see on Terraform Comics Continuum. And that is the collection that we're putting together, and that should be launching very soon as well. So yeah. Thank you for having me, Russ, and I appreciate it. And I want that evil laugh. I definitely, I'm probably, because, here's the other thing that I'm thinking about doing is I'm thinking about possibly a Kickstarter kind of a backer goal. So I guess it would be considered a stretch goal, but I want to offer an audiobook. And why not?
Yeah. Damn you, Russ, was getting in closet. When did you laugh? When you laugh, it scared me. Yes! I love it. Yeah. Hey, I'm down for that. Hey, Trish was raving on my mad audio reading of my Xenonanite Titan. I did the reading of the intro that I put up on Kickstarter.
Yes.
It wasn't as good as it could be. I was in a lot of pain. I skipped Blue Balls reviews that weekend, but I went ahead and did the live reading because I had put it off because I was in a lot of pain. And
well, that's something that I struggled with also, because Compendium, like I said, it was something that I put out there to be kind of a group effort, and with the audiobook, I kind of had the same ideas. Like, let's get some people who want to try their hand at voiceover work, and I'm just so afraid of disappointment that I'm like, maybe I'll just record it myself. But hey, if anybody's interested. And I'm hoping that that the Kickstarter exceeds goals, not only to help support art, but it would be cool to send some money to some voiceover artists too. I mean, I'm really not pocketing a lot. I really want to see this come to fruition and see it take that next step into the next creative endeavor. So that's the goal.
And that's always what it's about, striving for more, right?
Mm-hmm. Always.
Well, thanks.
Stay uncomfortable, my friends. Stay uncomfortable.
That's right. Well, thanks a lot for being on here, Meredith. I really appreciate it.
And everybody who tuned in, I appreciate you.
Thanks a lot. Have a great night. If you want to hang out in the back for a minute, I will be back. All right, everybody. Thanks a lot for being here tonight. Thanks for hanging out during the show. We had fun. It was a great time. And definitely check out Meredith's project. It's awesome. I'm really excited about it. I definitely need to go swing by and back it. Compendium of Dread. Check it out, back it, share it, love it. Tell all your friends about it, because that's what we do. Because sharing is caring, and it doesn't cost you a dime. So everyone, have a great week. Have an awesome week. It's 2021. It's always something to look forward to. Hopefully it stays good. As always, Russ Explode Studios, projects that'll blow your mind. You all have a great night.